2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the place yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City. It's a Football Friday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course on YouTube. Welcome on in. Action-packed show today. 855-212-4CBS number to jump on in. 855-212-4227. You can always interact with the show on Instagram where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. We have a monster Football Friday show for you coming up 20 minutes from now. A man that had 8 receptions for 230 yards last night, and count them, not 1, not 2, but 3 touchdowns in the Bears' big-time beatdown to the Commanders, 40-20. DJ Moore will be joining us right here on CBS Sports Radio. Hour number 2, Kevin Carter from CBS Sports Network, college football analyst, former NFL and college player, will join us in studio. And then the final hour of the show, we'll connect with Ryan Horvat in his weekly spot from BetMGM tonight via BetQL, and we'll do a little NFL and college picks with him. Let's start with the football from Thursday night, and we will put the Bears and the great story of the Bears in an isolated window from one game on the back burner. We'll circle back with it when DJ Moore joins us, and then later on in this hour, because that was phenomenal what Justin Fields did. It's crazy. For the last 3-4 weeks, all we've talked about is Justin Fields getting traded at the end of the year. And you wake up today, and I know, right, there's only 2 quarterbacks that have played through 5 weeks of the season. But right now, Justin Fields leads the league in passing touchdowns. He puts 4 on the board last night, and the Bears just embarrassed the Washington Commanders. But for me, there's 2 takeaways from the game. It's what the Bears did and what is the future of the Chicago Bears, as they did trade Chase Claypool today to the Miami Dolphins, which is no surprise. And then it's the Washington Commanders. And the Commanders are in a state right now that could be the worst state to be in the NFL, because you're not going to be great, but you're not going to be horrible. So you're in no man's land, in a stalemate of you're going to either be a 7, 8, or 9-win football team, and your apex, if everything goes right, is getting a wild card game on the road and losing on wild card weekend. And it's so evident to me now, with new ownership, with Josh Harris, Magic Johnson and company coming in and seeing their football team with actual fans in the stands that represent the Commanders, which never would be a thing under Daniel Snyder. There would have been like 50,000 Bears fans in the building last night. But with a packed house, with a lot of Commanders fans, your team has to give a better effort. And we are too far in to the Ron Rivera era in D.C. with the Commanders, since he did take over as the coach in 2020, for that performance against an inferior team in the Chicago Bears to be present in front of your fans when there's finally some optimism, there's finally some hope with the Washington Commanders, since you have Daniel Snyder out and now Josh Harris in. And I've looked at the Commanders, where they started off hot with Ron Rivera. I know they were 7-9. The record doesn't indicate that they had a good season, but they made the playoffs that year and they won the NFC East. And after that, they've never moved this thing forward, and they've never taken the right step, where they've been 7-10, 8-1, and then to start off this season, they are 2-3. And you look at the roster, I do think it's a coaching problem, because what have we heard over the last 2-3 years about the Commanders? Man, their defense is loaded. Look how many great draft picks they have in their front 7 on the defensive side of the ball. And for the last 2-3 years, that defense has never popped. That defense has never sizzled. And Jack Del Rio still remains the defensive coordinator. And Ron Rivera says today there's going to be no changes. Now, Jack Del Rio should have been canned after the game last night. And you're seeing this now with longtime coaches in the league. They're stubborn. Mike Tomlin is stubborn with Matt Canada running his offense. Bill Belichick last year was stubborn and did something in an idiotic way to bring in Matt Patricia and Joe Judge to run his offense. And Ron Rivera is ultimately going to get fired at the end of the year, and it's his fault because he's the CEO. He has a good enough roster where you shouldn't lose by 20 points, or you shouldn't lose, period, to the Chicago Bears, and they have never advanced this thing forward from what was a good foundational year in year number 1 when he got there in 2020. So no one should be surprised at the end of the season, because at best the Commanders go 9-8 and they make the playoffs. And even so, when you are now in the 4th year of being a head coach in the NFL and you are a veteran, long-term, tenured head coach in this league, just making the playoffs in year number 4 shouldn't be good enough. And I can't even sit here and lock it up that the Commanders are going to be making the playoffs this year, especially after their lethargic and anemic and just putrid performance that they put on display last night. So I'm thinking about, how do the Commanders move this thing forward? How do the Commanders get this thing in the right direction? Because clearly, Ron Rivera is no longer the guy. Ron Rivera is a great man, but the game has passed him by, and we've seen that the last 2 years. Whether it was him putting his foot in his mouth with the Carson Wentz situation and storming off after a game when you made it worse than what it needed to be, when talking to the media because you got sensitive because you thought that the perception was that this was a decision that was made by Daniel Snyder to bring in Carson Wentz, or admitting that you had no clue what the heck Sam Howell was, even though he was on your roster the entirety of all last year, until the final week of the season when you put him in and he dominated. Or him saying he even put his foot in his mouth once again with the handling of the Eric Bieniemy situation before the start of the season. And he keeps on saying the wrong things. He's not winning games, and he's making decisions that when I'm on my couch watching these games, it's obvious that he just doesn't have it anymore. Like last week, you're going up against a superior football team in the Philadelphia Eagles. Jahan Dotson catches the ball right at the end of the game, gets a touchdown. You don't have enough talent in overtime to probably win that game and to outlast the Eagles. Go for the 2-point conversion right there, and Ron Rivera didn't do that. So the facts are, Ron Rivera is 24-30-1. This is now his 4th year as the head coach of the Commanders. And Josh Harris, Magic Johnson, who was annoyed after the game last night and tweeting about it, they're evaluating. They are looking at the entirety of this team, not only on the field, but on the sidelines and upstairs as well, and the entire way that this organization is being operated. Because there needs to be enormous changes to build the right culture with the Washington Commanders, because Daniel Snyder just didn't believe in culture. Daniel Snyder really took a blowtorch to the word culture, and he only had a negative culture when he was when he was running and being the head honcho of the Washington Commanders. So this is what I would say to Josh Harris or Magic Johnson. If they were sitting right next to me right now, I would say, as much as everyone in this game respects Ron Rivera, you know, for your football team, the best thing moving forward is to get rid of Ron Rivera. Now, you don't have to do that in season. You don't have to do that right now. Ron Rivera can get the rest of the season. But the first name I'm calling, if I'm Josh Harris, who you know, he'll be willing to write the check to make this team a contender or try to put them in the best position to succeed. The first name I'm calling is Jim Harbaugh, who's currently coaching the Michigan Wolverines. And I know there was a report earlier in the week by the Wolverine that there's a new contract that could be coming sooner rather than later for Jim Harbaugh. If I'm Jim Harbaugh, with my pending issues with the NCAA, how they're still trying to put a punitive action on you for buying some kids some cheeseburgers at the Brown Jug in Ann Arbor, some recruits, I don't know if I'm definitely going to be returning to Michigan next year. If this gets into a petty, inane, just game that the NCAA always plays and the NCAA is filled with jackassery, I don't know if I'm definitely coming back to Michigan. And don't get me wrong, if you're Jim Harbaugh, you have this thing at Michigan right now humming. The last 2 years, they've crushed Ohio State. They've made it to the college football playoff. You have a legitimate chance to win a national championship this year. But if you get into these silly antics of the NCAA, when do you just say, is it worth it? And it's no longer worth it. And that's why if I'm Jim Harbaugh, I wouldn't sign anything right now that solidifies my future at Michigan. Because at the end of the year and the last 2 years, he's displayed an interest in returning to the NFL. He sat in an 11-hour interview in Minnesota 2 years ago. If you were just trying to use that as a negotiation tactic with Michigan, you're not sitting in an 11-hour interview with Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah and the Wolf family with the Minnesota Vikings. You're just not doing that. And last year, his name was floated out there again. And you could bet you know what, that Jim Harbaugh's name is going to get floated out there again for NFL jobs. Because there's some teams right now that need new leadership. They need new coaches. And say what you want about the personality of Jim Harbaugh. Personally, I love him. I think he's great for football. But the guy has won in college. And then in the NFL, he was the coach of the 49ers for 4 years. They made it to the Super Bowl, and they made it to 3 NFC championship games. So if I'm Josh Harris, I'm imploring the sports gods. I'm saying pretty please. Don't have Jim Harbaugh sign a long-term extension or a new deal with Michigan. And I'm calling him up, and I'm saying, Jim, you could run the entire team. You want to be the GM and the coach? You want to bring in your own guy to be the GM and you coach the team? Go ahead. Because Jim Harbaugh wins in college. Jim Harbaugh wins in the NFL. And he would be the perfect person for the Commanders to hand their organization over to. And really give the keys to the franchise to Jim Harbaugh and have his khaki pants come to Landover, Maryland, and coach his football team back to glory. But Jim Harbaugh's not a dummy. That's why I don't know if Jim Harbaugh is going to immediately sign a new deal right now and an extension with Michigan, because he's going to have more leverage at the end of the season. Michigan could win the national championship this year. And if you think it's just going to be the Commanders that come calling this offseason, you're foolish. Because the Chargers, if the Spanos family isn't cheap, they should absolutely call Jim Harbaugh to replace Brandon Staley with his dopey analytics that never work, and he gets bailed out by quarterbacks throwing interceptions like Kirk Cousins and also Aiden O'Connell. And I know that the Bears won last night, and now there's a conversation about the Chicago Bears. Oh, maybe Eberflus is doing something well. Oh, maybe Justin Fields is going to be the long-term guy. They won one lousy game. If I'm the Chicago Bears and you have the possibility of having the first and second overall pick in this upcoming draft, I'm not trusting Matt Eberflus. I'm not trusting Ryan Poles. That's another situation where if Jim Harbaugh wants to be the GM and the coach, write him the check. Write him a blank check and let him come in and work his magic. Because I can only evaluate from what I've seen. And I know there's a lot of times you go, oh, a college coach in the NFL, 9 times out of 10 it doesn't work. It's already worked with Jim Harbaugh. He's already been an NFL head coach in San Francisco. And I know it was a messy ending, but I would take the messy ending of a 4-year run when you're in 3 NFC championship games and also in a Super Bowl, because Ron Rivera's right now is in a 4-year run. And what's the highlight for Ron Rivera? Going 7-9 and being in the NFC East division winner and losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that wild card game. And I know Taylor Ham Heineke, as I like to call him, had that nice touchdown run, and we were all saying Air Heineke, but that's the highlight of the Ron Rivera era so far in Landover, Maryland. And this team has talent. You know, you have Terry McLaurin. You have Jahan Dotson. You have Brian Robinson Jr. Sam Howell, the receivers got to help him out last night. They dropped too many footballs, but I'm not ready to say that this guy can't play in this league. And defensively, you continue to allow Jack Del Rio to be your defensive coordinator, and there's so much talent on this roster, and the talent's nowhere up to par to where they should be. Like Chase Young has been a bust. They've already declined his 5th-year option. I know he's dealt with injuries, but this defense, my oh my, the way that we talked about the Bears heading into this game, you would have thought the Commanders' defense would have had a field day with Chicago. Instead, it was the complete antithesis, and Chicago dragged this Swiss cheese defense of the Commanders up and down the field all night long. So there's no justification anymore for Ron Rivera to be the Commanders' long-term coach, and I think it's coming to a close at the end of the year, and I would absolutely pick up the phone once you make the move, if he's still available, in Jim Harbaugh, and call Jim Harbaugh and say, we want you to come to Landover, Maryland, and run this team. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Zach Gelb here with you on CBS Sports Radio. Give me a name that you like if Ron Rivera is out at the end of the year that should replace him as the head coach of the Commanders. If you can't tell, I'm going with Jim Harbaugh. That would be my first call, and I think it's the best call to make. We'll take a break here. When we come on back, the star of the game last night, DJ Moore. If you had DJ Moore in your fantasy team last night, you already won. Like, if you lose fantasy football this week after he puts up 50 points in fantasy football, your team just sucks or you have the worst luck in the world. But 8 receptions for 230 yards and 3 touchdowns. Can't wait to reconnect with DJ Moore when the Zach Gelb Show continues. We're off and running on a very busy Football Friday right here on CBS Sports Radio. Do you ever feel like your brain is getting in its own way? Like you know what you should do, what's good for you, but you just can't do it? Therapy helps you figure out what's holding you back so you can work for yourself instead of against yourself. Sometimes it's just a matter of talking things out so you can get a better understanding of what may be standing in your way, even if that's you. You know, we've all been through some unpredictable times over the past few years, and it's not a sign of weakness to ask for help. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Gelb today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Gelb, GELB.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio.
Mike in Abilene, Texas, next up on CBS Sports Radio.
Thanks for taking my call, man. Hope everybody's doing well.
By the way, Mike, you're in a lot calmer mood today because Ohio State football hasn't started up yet. Like, usually you're calling, you're ranting, you're raving, you're going nuts about the Buckeyes.
Man, first and foremost, I have to tell you, that really makes me feel pretty special. This connection I have with radio, I've been calling radio stations for 10, 15 years to share my opinion and share my beliefs. And, man, it's nice to be recognized for passion that my wife deems not only completely unnecessary, but borderline insanity.
Here's Zach Gelb.
All righty, welcome back in. Football Friday, Zach Gelb Show here with you on CBS Sports Radio. We're awaiting DJ Moore, the star of Thursday Night Football last night, to kick off Week 5. Should be joining us momentarily here on CBS Sports Radio. And you can find our poll question today at Zach Gelb at CBS Sports Radio. The Bears will blank Justin Fields this offseason, and the options are trade or keep. Right now, early returns after last night, where if we asked this question yesterday, I would say the majority would say trade. 62.1% right now say keep Justin Fields, and 37.9% say trade Justin Fields. And you examine right now the Bears' options on that, you have a team that you don't know how we're going to be talking about their quarterback at the end of the year. I do believe the reason why Justin Fields has not been as successful so far in his career is more so of the Bears than his individual talent. but we've seen before organizations ruin their young quarterbacks. But the last two games, and I know you could chalk it up to, well, it's up against the Broncos, and their defense is trending in the wrong direction, and the Commanders, their defense are trending in the wrong direction. You see the raw ability and the athleticism and the arm that is capable of one Justin Fields. And Justin Fields last night had a phenomenal evening in an isolated window. Like, that's an important thing, too. Like, remember last year when the Broncos were just getting embarrassed week in and week out, and we all took a look at the Broncos, and we kept on seeing them in prime time, and it was like, wow, Russell Wilson looks horrible. Nathaniel Hackett looks horrible. Usually when something's in an isolated window, we think about it in a negative way. But the Bears last night, after 4 weeks for the most part of negativity, were on Thursday Night Football. Expectations were really low. When you look at this Bears-Commanders game, we all thought it was going to be low scoring. It ends up being high scoring. A lot of us thought it was going to be a blowout, but not by the team that ended up winning the game. And the Bears blow out the Commanders, and then you sit here, and after 4 weeks of trade Justin Fields and what's going to happen, the conversation is now starting to turn a little bit. But as quickly as it could turn and be in a positive way, you go back to playing how you did the first 2 weeks of the season, where you weren't only not playing well, but then it got ugly, and you said you were thinking too much, and you threw the coaching staff under the bus. That will totally flip. But it is a compelling decision that the Bears have to make, because if they finish the year with the number one pick, and it couldn't even be because of their own incompetence, it could simply be because the Panthers are the worst team in the league. And if the Panthers finish with, 1 or 2 wins, 3 wins at most, and have the number one overall pick, the Panthers don't even get the benefits of being bad, because they traded that pick to the Bears so they could go select Bryce Young. But you're in all likelihood looking at the Chicago Bears having 2 top 5 picks. And if Caleb Williams is there, I know it's one great game by Justin Fields, but I have a tough time believing that the Bears aren't going to trade Fields and then they're going to bypass on Caleb Williams. They probably still will take Caleb Williams. But you could make the argument on the flip side, if you like what you see from Fields, go get him more talent. We all know DJ Moore is sensational, but you go add maybe a Marvin Harrison Jr. with one of those picks, and then another top 5 pick, you get a stud offensive lineman or a stud defensive lineman. How many times do we also say when we're trying to go find a quarterback, build the team first? Well, they have maybe a quarterback that could be good, and if you bypass on a Caleb Williams, you go get 2 dominant pieces to move this thing forward. Ultimately, I still think Eberflus is going to be out at the end of the year. I still do believe that you're going to see Ryan Poles get set packing at the end of the season. And I don't think Bears fans are going to want to say you have to trade Fields. But with the likelihood of them getting the number one pick so high from their own pick or the Panthers pick, if the way we talk about Caleb Williams is a generational talent, like a Luck and like a Trevor Lawrence, and the way that he's been hyped up like a Peyton Manning, where even Caleb Williams exudes that confidence as well, where Caleb Williams says, and he said this to me at the Heisman, there's nothing Patrick Mahomes does that he can't do. If you don't know for sure that Fields is going to be the real deal at the end of this year, you can't find a way to just pass up on Williams because you're hoping that Fields develops. So Fields is playing for his job. Eberflus is still coaching for his job. And Poles is still trying to be a general manager, searching to keep his job. With all those things being said, it was a great performance last night. But it doesn't really make me say now, oh, you have to keep everyone in place. But you heard the conversation, the postgame last night. It went multiple ways where some were on board with keeping this regime. Others were saying, no, you got to blow it up so at the end of the year it's only one game. But the Bears made a statement last night that was needed, was to just get a victory. But the fact that they blew out the Commanders, it did totally start to shift the immediate reaction of where we were with this team and what did transpire through the first 4 weeks of the season. But still, it's a football team that's 1-4. So even though it was one impressive game, let's not act as if the entire organization has totally changed. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let's go to Brian in North Carolina. Next up on the Zach Gelb Show right here on CBS Sports Radio. Brian, what's happening?
Hey, Zach, it's your buddy Brian. I have a question for you. I know that you just said the Panthers may only get a couple wins this season, but do you believe there's any chance, even if we make a trade for a wide receiver, that we could finish 500 in a rebuilding year?
500?
And I ask you this because I need to know how many gummies I got to buy to deal with my football depression for the rest of the season. So I need a budget for this.
Yeah, well, Brian, I'm not going to tell you what you're going to do off the field, but let's just be real here. If you're still thinking that this football team could be 500, you may have already taken too many gummies. But I don't care if you bring in Jerry Rice. There's no way that this team is going to be 500 because Frank Reich is an overrated coach. The offensive line has done a complete 180, and it's banged up from where it was a year ago. And they're going to get Bryce Young killed. They are. Because they have no wide receivers there that are number one receivers that take the top off the defense, that put any fear into the eyes of the opposition. And Miles Sanders, he got paid this offseason, but Miles Sanders is not this good running back. He was rather disappointing in Philadelphia up until last year, and he was more of a product of a great Eagles offensive line. And look in the Super Bowl. They didn't even trust Miles Sanders to use him. So there's nothing that the Panthers could do this year that would make me think, okay, they could save this ship from sinking. Ultimately, wins and losses are irrelevant for the Panthers. You need Bryce Young to start showing you that he could carry this team. But as we've talked about, there's a lot of young quarterbacks that get drafted in bad situations, and David Tepper has to start taking this on the chin because he has not done a good job as an owner in the NFL. And you take a glance at this Panthers team, I can't give you any hope. You know, they got a solid defense. We know that. But what does a solid defense mean if you have an offense that could do nothing? And the next 2 weeks for the Panthers, they play the Lions and they play the Dolphins. That's a loss and a loss. And then you have a bye week, and coming out of the bye, you have the Texans and the Colts, who aren't these great teams, but they're performing well with young quarterbacks in the same draft class. So you look at that with the way the Texans don't have much and the Colts don't have much, are off to a good start, and the Panthers are sitting there, and they are lost, absolutely lost, and they have nothing on the offensive side of the ball. And I'll say this with the Panthers. Steve Wilkes should still be the head coach of that football team. He did a good job on an interim basis last year after that team got off to a rancid start. And I said this in the offseason. If you could have got Sean Payton, if you could have got Jim Harbaugh, I understand not bringing back Steve Wilkes. But when you hire Frank Reich, that's an underwhelming hire to me. And that's hiring someone based off name, not what they've done recently in the NFL. The last 2 years, when Frank Reich was with the Indianapolis Colts, they were disappointing. They were a mess. They got embarrassed in Jacksonville in the final week of the season when the fans were dressed up as clowns. The Jaguars fans, and you couldn't beat that team? The Carson Wentz experiment was a disaster. And then also, you look at the year after that, they didn't win one first half. Jeff Saturday comes off the couch from ESPN, and he beat the Raiders. So come on. I have no words of optimism if you're a Carolina Panthers fan. But you look at the Texans, you look at the Colts, they don't have great rosters, and they're finding a way to be at least competent, be competitive. But the Panthers, they're 0-4 right now. Blown out by the Falcons. Looks prettier than what it was against the Saints. You lose by 10 to Seattle. I know Andy Dalton was playing, and then last week, you had a good first half effort and then did nothing in the second half. You lose 21-13 to Minnesota. All right, we're still trying to connect with DJ Moore. Hopefully we get him on at some point in this hour or before we do sign off at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. He had a monster game last night as the Chicago Bears just crushed the Commanders 40-20. Moore, 8 receptions for 230 yards and 3 touchdowns. And the big story is Justin Fields, 15-29, 282 yards and 4 touchdowns. The poll question today, the Bears this offseason will do what with Justin Fields? Trade him or keep him? You could chime on in at Zach Gelb at CBS Sports Radio or jump on our phone lines, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227 to chime in on that. I still think the Bears, because of the draft picks they have and the goal of getting Caleb Williams, will select Caleb Williams, whether it's through their pick or the Panthers pick, and then at the end of the year, get something back for Justin Fields. Let's get the latest CBS Sports Radio update in with the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Sports Flash.
Well, DJ Moore had a big night. Chase Claypool now has a new home dealt by the Bears to Miami for a swap of 2025 late-round picks. Claypool was inactive for the last 2 games and is now with his third team in the last year. He started with the Steelers, and the Steelers will have Kenny Pickett. He looked bad a week ago when he suffered a knee injury, but it turned out to be a bone bruise and is now ready to go against the Ravens on Sunday. He is not listed on the injury report. Cooper Kupp off IR and through a week of practice will play Sunday for the Rams against the Eagles. Week 6 of the college football season is underway, and top-ranked Georgia is 5-0 and has won 22 straight and will host 20th-ranked Kentucky. The defending champs haven't looked invincible so far. Head coach Kirby Smart said they need to get off to better starts.
I've been years where you score every first possession and you stop them every time, and then for a while we were like, we couldn't get it started in third quarter. We could never get any momentum going in the third quarter, and we were awful in the third quarter. One of the years we won a national championship, but it's something you try to address and think about the way you start the game, but don't overthink it.
They'll also need to be better against the run with the Wildcats' Ray Davis coming off a career-best 280-yard performance last week. I'm Rich Ackerman.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio.
You know me, I love your Ross Tucker, and you're a Princeton guy, so you're a real erudite man. Did you really not know how to say cojones? Was cajones a real thing? That's how you thought it was pronounced?
You know, it's funny, Zach, because you're the first person that's brought it up on the air since then, and I honestly am not sure what happened there. Because I know I've heard cojones before. I am not sure if I heard somebody else recently mispronounce it and say cajones, or which I think might be the case, or if I just hadn't heard it in a while and I had just seen it. In any case, it's an absolute disaster, and my entire family was extremely embarrassed, and I'll have to never be able to live it down, unfortunately.
Here's Zach Gelb.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. It's time to Ask the Pros, where you, the listeners, get to ask us a question brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Be listening later in the show when we might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. We're still working on getting DJ Moore up. His agent's trying to contact him, so hopefully we can get him on the show before we do say goodbye at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Kevin Carter's going to join us, college football analyst for CBS Sports Network, in the next hour, and then in the third and final hour, each and every Football Friday right here on CBS Sports Radio at 5:20 p.m. Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Pacific. Ryan Horvat from BetMGM Tonight will join us via the BetQL family, as we'll get a few college picks from Ryan Horvat, and then we'll do some NFL picks as well. And if I'm Brian, that was just calling in North Carolina, or a guy that's always in the YouTube chat, I'd be listening to Horvat's picks, because your Carolina Panther season is already over. So try to go win some money this year instead of hoping that the Carolina Panthers are going to turn it around. But that's always a difficult thing, folks. When your football team stinks, you're a fan. We're all addicted to watching football. Like, Stu is a long-suffering Raiders fan. Samter was a Jet fan. Now he's a Fugazi football fan, and he just jumped ships. But you look at the teams that you grew up rooting for, you don't just, well, besides Samter, abandon the team. You can't do that. And Stu's done it 1,000 times in football season, where he knows each and every Sunday he's going to sit on his couch. He's going to get the pigs in the blanket out. He's going to get the wings on the table, the nachos, maybe the bean dip too, whatever Stu's cooking up. And he's going to sit there, stuff his face, and he's going to watch his team just be horrible. Like, Stu, you probably have some good depression food, I would imagine, that is just on call whenever you watch a Raiders game, because each and every Sunday it's like death, taxes, and the Raiders losing.
Yeah, it's a lot of ice cream, a lot of cake. I would go
for
with a lot of sweets. Yeah, that late 4 o'clock Eastern window. Yeah, it's tough.
Yes.
But I will fade them is one of the things I will actually do a lot of times when I know they're going to lose. I'll bet money on the other team, and then...
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, so I...
See, I can't do that. I could pick against my team on the air, but I can't physically put money against my football team. I just think it's sacrilegious.
It probably is, but with how bad they've been pretty much my whole life, I'm kind of used to them losing, and hey, at least I get something out of it if they do lose.
But I do like the call, Stu, that you go with sweets, because usually... Now, I'm here on Football Sundays doing the Eye on Football show from noon to 8 p.m. Eastern for 8 hours talking about all the games. But if I'm off on a Sunday, or if there's just one Sunday where, let's say, there's a loaded Saturday slate because of a holiday, and I get to watch a football Sunday, I got the charcuterie board out. We're usually doing something Italian, maybe get someone cooking on the grill, things like that. But you are right. When something doesn't go your way, my uncle Gary, would always be like, go get the Edmund cookies. You got to go get the cookies. And you get the cookies, and then you get some ice cream as well, and you just sit there and you eat your sorrows away, and then you hope that you wake up the next day and feel better. But when your football team is bad, are you still just destroyed emotionally throughout the week? Because when my team was just winning, when they would occasionally lose a game, the entire week, it was just, oh my God, it's a haze. I've never really felt this much losing before, and you just wait until the week goes by till you get to the end of the week.
Unfortunately, I'm numb to it at this point.
Yeah,
I would say the year they had that was really good in 2016, where they won 12 games.
Mm-hmm.
The few times they lost, it was tough, and then obviously when Derek Carr went down with the injury, that was miserable.
Turn out the lights.
Ruined
the
my
party's
Christmas.
over.
Yeah, that was a disaster.
Ruined my Christmas.
But seriously, other than that, I'm pretty much used to it.
It's all right. One day still, you'll get a winning football team.
Maybe.
You may just be above, floating somewhere in the sky with a bunch of people feeding you grapes, and you may be dead for about 50 years. So that's a possibility. Anyway.
That's morbid.
Well, it's true. How many times do you hear an old man on the radio go, this team's never going to win, and they're going to win when I'm dead? I feel like you hear that all the time. So I'm not saying Stu's not going to be able to enjoy it, but he just may be in heaven. We all know Stu's not going down below the earth. Stu's a great guy. He's a classy individual. We know whenever it's Stu's time, the big fella upstairs is going to welcome Stu with open arms, and he's going to give him, in the elite category, the elite section of heaven. There's no doubt about that. All righty, let's update you on some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We get to the news brief.
Extra, read all about it. Extra, read all about it.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Let's go to Donna Kelce, the world's biggest star right now. Forget Travis Kelce. Forget Taylor Swift. Swifties, that was in jest. Don't come after me. Don't stalk me outside of our 345 Hudson Street studios. Oh, probably just shouldn't have given the
don't give the address out.
I am a 5'4" man, and my name is Michael Samter. All right? This is not Zach Gelb. This is the Michael Samter Show on CBS Sports Radio. Don't go after the 6'4" guy. That is the jolly old giant. He happens to be just a very nice person. But anyway, here's Donna Kelce on the PR boost from Taylor Swift. This is credit of the Got It From My Mama podcast. That's probably the best credit we've ever had here on CBS Sports Radio.
All I can tell you is that the NFL is laughing all the way to the bank. Good for them. They're getting the ramifications of everything. I can tell you this, that they've told me personally that the Kelce family has done more good PR for football than they could have paid $1 million to a PR firm.
She's 100% right. And I love how the NFL is just admitting this, where they're telling everyone close to the Kelce family, yeah, you guys are doing wonderful PR for the league. And Samter, wasn't the story that the NFL was telling the networks to just run free promos of Taylor Swift? The NFL does nothing for free. And they are saying, Taylor Swift's at the games. You need to go run some promos for this Eras Tour movie that they're putting on out there, I guess is the gist of this. I actually had a marketing rep who works with a flower company. He called me. And he asked me if I had any ins to the luxury boxes around the NFL because the flower company wanted to deliver Taylor Swift flowers that had Kansas City Chiefs wrapping on it. And that's what people are thinking about because everyone is trying to get their product in front of Taylor Swift. Dave Portnoy, who's in with High Noon, and I happen to love High Noon. There was some girl in orange pants, I think, 4 seats away from Taylor Swift, and she had a High Noon. And he was begging her throughout the game, go share the High Noon with Taylor Swift because there's no bigger star on the planet right now than Taylor Swift. Is there a bigger person on the planet right now than Taylor Swift? Is she the most popular person on the planet?
I mean, maybe BTS, but I mean, that's over in South Korea.
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, they're like a boy band, and they're huge. So whenever anybody wants to get anything done, just from a popularity standpoint, TikTok, IG, whatever, it's BTS. But I don't know if they're more popular.
Yeah, like I don't like to get political, and 50% of the people tell you he's popular, 50% won't. But like Trump's always in the news.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know about popularity.
I think it just depends on where your politics do lie.
Yeah.
But I would say I don't think anyone dislikes Taylor Swift, right? Is there a soul out there that dislikes Taylor Swift outside of you're just annoyed with the hype and you just want to watch football?
I think that's probably what it is. I don't think people have any issues with Taylor Swift other than the fact that they're just inundated with too much stuff.
And that's a real minority of people. Like, that's not a vocal minority of people that you're hearing really bashing Taylor Swift. Let's hear one more from Donna Kelsey on spending time with Taylor Swift. This was courtesy of NBC Today.
It's fairly new, so I don't like to talk about it. It's just another thing that's amped up my life.
Yeah, what was she like? Got to sit with a couple games. How was it?
It was okay. Yeah.
It's okay. Now, I'm going to interpret as that's Donna Kelsey, who's doing an interview, so you got to know this is going to be asked. So you want the attention. But that's probably her not wanting to give out too much information. She looked like she was having the time of her life with Taylor Swift. Like Stu, right? You've met your girlfriend's parents probably recently.
Yeah.
I don't think your girlfriend's parents would just say, "Oh yeah, Stu was okay. He was vanilla."
I
right?
hope not. I really hope not.
But like you listen to that, I have a tough time believing that Donna Kelsey isn't blown away by Taylor Swift. But you hear the answer, it didn't match up with what I thought the reaction would have been. Let's go to Evan Neal on his comments about the fans, where he apologized for this, and he told the fans, "Who are you to boo? You know, I'm a lion, you're a sheep. Who is criticizing me? All these guys that are flipping burgers and flipping hot dogs." Here's Evan Neal.
That I'm remorseful, and I definitely could have used a better choice of words. Coming from humble beginnings myself, I never want to belittle anyone, regardless of their financial status or their occupation. So I really just wanted to apologize for what I said. When I made those comments, it was just out of a moment of frustration. Right now, we must play better as a team, and I must perform better myself. And I just kind of let my frustrations get the best of me in that moment.
I don't defend the comments, but as I said yesterday, this is a 23-year-old kid who is on this huge stage and has never dealt with failure before. And he's getting blasted left and right from everybody. So I think we could all move on from this. I know people are always going to hold this against him because that's just the world that we live in. He apologized. I'm forgiving. This isn't the worst thing in the world. It's not right what he said, but I think we could all move on from this, or I hope so. Here is Cam Newton on What If the Jets Called Him. This was on the RG3 and the Ones podcast.
I'm not about to sit up here and sign a $5.5 million deal, bro. Those days are over with. I'll be wasting my time. I don't want to walk into a dysfunctional situation. Also, Aaron Rodgers is trying to come back this year. So when he comes back, is it just going to be something that you just say, hey, watch out?
It's actually sad because Cam is now in the category of you still think you could play, but we all know that you're not capable of being a long-term starting quarterback in the league anymore. So you could talk about the $5.5 million and Rodgers eventually coming back. With Rodgers, I know he could say he's returning, but he's not going to be able to return this year. Just, let's stop with this. I know it's something you have to ask Cam, and it's a fair question, but I saw Cam play towards the end in Carolina. I saw Cam play in New England. The guy is just not a great starting quarterback anymore, or even a good starting quarterback anymore in the NFL. Here's Jamar Chase on Zach Taylor's reaction to Jamar Chase after the game last week, saying he's always open.
Honestly, man, I thought I was in deep. Not gonna lie, bro. I got called to that office after that day, and I thought I was in trouble. And if I'm being completely honest, and Zach told me great effing interview, so
wow.
I had the most shocked face on my face when he told me that. So I mean, it was just like a relief off my shoulders, thinking I'm bashing my teammates and this media trying to bash me for being a.
That's a fascinating response. I would have thought that when you're Jamar Chase, the team's losing, and you're saying you're always open, the coach would be like, yeah, we don't need that distraction. And Zach Taylor goes, what a great effing interview. Here is Najee Harris on the criticism of his offensive coordinator in Matt Canada.
I see everybody talking about this coaching stuff about the play calling, but Brett, we're not trying to point the finger at all. It's crazy. We have to execute at the end of the day, no matter who's back there calling the plays. I honestly say that we're not doing that right now. Not coaches. It has nothing to do with coaches. It's just players. We have to play better.
So I respect that response from Najee Harris because you could throw the coaching staff under the bus, especially when your entire fan base is doing that. But I like when players put it on themselves instead of blaming others, even though we all know Matt Canada should no longer be the offensive coordinator. Here is the 49ers general manager, John Lynch. He was on the Murph and Mack show on KNBR in the Bay Area, and he was asked if he's worried about Trey Lance, who's now on the Cowboys, giving Dallas too much info before their big tilt on Sunday Night Football.
There is information you can share. My experience with that as a player is it tends to screw you up more than it does help you. I mean, this isn't the Houston Astros over there banging a drum for fastball or football.
Yeah.
He can't do that over there, and now everything's through the headset.
Yeah, I think it's really an overblown storyline. I don't believe that Trey Lance, they could be a resource, but he's not going to go out there and win them the game. And finally, here's Cam Rising detailing the full extent of his knee injury, the Bill Riley Show on ESPN 700.
Wasn't really expecting to do this, but I think it's important that I just kind of let everybody know. I didn't just tear my ACL. I tore my ACL, meniscus, MPFL, and MCL. It was a big surgery, and it's not an easy comeback, and I've been working my tail off. I'm ahead of schedule, and I'm trying to make sure that I can be out there.
It's so unfortunate because he hasn't been able to play yet this season, and I was talking to Kyle Whittingham. This was 3 weeks ago, and he thought that his quarterback was close to returning. He's been practicing with the team, but Cam kind of just shared that it was a little bit more than just an ACL, and we'll see if he ends up playing. I know they're in a bye this week, but coming out of the bye on October 14th, they do have Cal, and I know Utah's trying to get that answer early in the week rather than later in the week. So hope Cam Rising can be okay, because if he is, back-to-back Pac-12 champs, it only picks up the intensity of the great Pac-12 quarterback competition.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
How we doing? Football Friday right here. Zach Gelb here with you on CBS Sports Radio. You know, I'm looking at the docket for this weekend in the NFL, and there's two teams that I think can make enormous statements this weekend. The obvious one, the Dallas Cowboys against the San Francisco 49ers. And then it's also the Jacksonville Jaguars against the Buffalo Bills. Let's start with Dallas. The Cowboys are off to a really good start this year. I think there's a good amount of people that have understood that the Cowboys are a contender. You look at the NFC, the Eagles and 49ers. You could debate who you think is the best team. I've said it's the Eagles. Everyone will then say, Gelb, you root for the Eagles. I don't. I'm from New York. I'm also a Patriot fan, so I do not root for the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, I don't dislike the Eagles. I did live in Philadelphia, but it's not as if I'm picking the Eagles over the 49ers because I love the Eagles and I genuflect to the Eagles and I can't stand the crap out of the San Francisco 49ers. But whoever you decipher as the better team between the Eagles and the 49ers, we could all acknowledge that the 49ers are one of the better teams in the NFL and either the best or second best team in the NFC. And then after that, we're all trying to figure out who could be that third contender in the NFC. Seattle could be a possibility. The Lions could be a possibility as well. But really, through the first 4 weeks of the season, it's the Dallas Cowboys, where the Cowboys have blown out three teams, both New York teams, and they also just crush the snot out of the New England Patriots. And then they go up against the Arizona Cardinals, and they kind of got embarrassed. So this is the best opponent and the first legit opportunity the Cowboys have to really send a message to the NFL that they're legit this year, where you don't punch your ticket to the NFC Championship game this weekend or to the Super Bowl this weekend and hoist the Lombardi Trophy, but you could get a lot more people to jump on the Dallas Cowboys bandwagon. Because as we asked about earlier, like, is Taylor Swift the most popular person on the planet? What I'll say about the Cowboys is they're the most polarizing team in the NFL, where the Cowboy fan is going to be annoying people. They're going to pop up like cockroaches that they are, and they're going to tell you how great they are when they win. But then when the exterminator comes and you lose games, we never hear from those Dallas Cowboys fans. But then most of the other fans in the NFL, because the Cowboys haven't won jack since 1995, they get sick and tired of the Dallas Cowboys. And people root against the Dallas Cowboys. And there's a reason why on a national radio show we talk about the Dallas Cowboys so much. Because they are a polarizing team. Everyone has an opinion about the Dallas Cowboys. And the way that I view the Cowboys, I think is a very fair and logical way. They're a really damn good football team. That for the last 2 years, they've had a championship defense, and they've had a team that Mike McCarthy's done a better job than what people give him credit for. And ultimately, when push comes to shove, against the 49ers 2 years ago in the wild card round, and against the 49ers last year in the divisional round, the quarterback has let them down. Where you could blame and scapegoat other people like Kellen Moore and the sloppy play calling where Dak couldn't get the ball off. You could blame Tony Pollard going down and unfortunately having an injury. But franchise quarterbacks that get paid $40 million are expected to elevate the team. And I know that it's unfortunate that Tony Pollard did go down in the game, but anytime Dak started to move the football, he turned it over against the 49ers. So even though the Cowboys can't solidify a spot in the NFC title game or the Super Bowl with the victory up against the 49ers, this would put the league on notice that we have to alter our expectations and look at the Cowboys differently if they walk into Santa Clara and they find a way, whether it's by 1 point, 10 points, 20 points, whatever it is, and it's not going to be a blowout. This is going to be a close game. Personally, I think the 49ers are going to win the game, but we all know there's a lot more to gain in this one from the Cowboys side than it is the San Francisco 49ers side. But there's no player and no team under more pressure this week than the Dallas Cowboys, and the player being Dak Prescott. Because this goes one or two ways. Dak Prescott wins the game and plays well, and everyone's singing his praises come Monday. Or if he's the reason why they lose the game like he has been the last 2 years, people look at Dak and they go, he's the definition of someone that is overpaid, someone that's paid like a great quarterback, and it doesn't mean he's an abysmal product, but he's a good quarterback. He's a very good quarterback, but when you're in a clutch spot against a great team, there's certain quarterbacks that have it. There's certain quarterbacks that you believe could get the job done, like a Mahomes, like a Josh Allen, like a Joe Burrow, like a Jalen Hurts, right? You know the names of guys, and this is the way that I define a franchise quarterback. Like many people have different ways to define a franchise quarterback. The way that I define it is when there is two ways I define it. If there's 2 minutes left in the game and you're down by 4 points, can your quarterback go get the ball, drive it down the field, and get a touchdown in the 2-minute offense? And the other way is if it's third down in the game, I don't care what it is, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 15, 3rd and 18, do I sit there on my couch or sit in the studio and say, I know this quarterback can't get a first down? And for Dak, he's just not a clutch player. And I know people could say, oh, well, he's won this playoff game. He's won that playoff game. Oh, he beat the Bucs last year in the postseason. And I bought into the Cowboys last year. And I never buy into the Cowboys. But I thought the Cowboys were going to walk into San Francisco last year, take care of San Francisco, and then go to Philadelphia for the NFC title game. And it was the same old story. The Cowboys really are like the team that is that great movie that you like to watch, that really good movie that you like to watch. And you know what the ending of the movie is going to be. But whenever you watch that movie, you sit there with your bowl of popcorn and you take in the movie, and you know that even if you think there's going to be a different result, the movie was made 20 years ago and it's going to be the same ending. So when you look at the Cowboys this weekend, Dak can't be the reason why they lose this game. And quite frankly, they got to win this game. Because if you don't win this game, and let's say San Francisco beats you like 30-20, like by a good margin, we're going to look at the Cowboys through 5 weeks of the season as they beat 3 bad football teams, lost to a bad football team, and then they went up against a great opponent. They just show that they're not in that class. And this year, the NFL's open. It really is. Like outside of the Eagles and the 49ers, we don't know much about the NFL this year. We know the Eagles are really good. We know the 49ers are really good. In the AFC, a few weeks ago, we were all down on the Bills. Now the Bills look like they're the flavor of the month. All right, first 3 weeks of the season, we all love the Dolphins. Now we doubt the Dolphins after the game up against Buffalo. Kansas City, we know that they're always going to be in it, but their offense hasn't started to click yet. So we don't know a lot about the NFL this year. The only thing I know right now is Mahomes will be in the postseason, and the 49ers and the Eagles are the two best teams in football. So this is there for the taking this year. But just because a team is vulnerable, just because the NFL is open, doesn't mean that it won't be the same old, where it's the Eagles and 49ers in it at the end. And if you keep on leaving the door open for the Kansas City Chiefs, just like what happened last year, if you have an opportunity to knock out Mahomes, you better knock him out, or else he's going to make you pay. So I got to see the Cowboys this weekend walk into Santa Clara, and I got to see number 4 earn that contract and make a statement, right? We talk about isolated window. Like Thursday night, Bears made a statement last night with Fields and DJ Moore. And some people, I'm not changing my thinking, but some people are saying, oh, maybe now the Bears should keep Justin Fields. The Dallas Cowboys have the most to gain this weekend. Because if the 49ers lose a close one, they're the 49ers. They wake up every year in the NFC Championship game. But if the Cowboys lose this one, you look at them and you just go, what are they? They have a good defense and a quarterback that can't win the big game. So enormous week for the Dallas Cowboys. And then another team that I think is under pressure that I don't believe a lot of people are talking about, it's actually the Jacksonville Jaguars. Because the Jaguars, remember, in week 1, the Jacksonville Jaguars against the Colts were down 4. They ended up winning the game by 10. Then they had a big, enormous task with the Chiefs coming into their building. And the Jacksonville Jaguars that have a good offense on paper with Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, you go through Calvin Ridley. I'll always take a gamble on Calvin Ridley. I'm a big fan of his. You have Christian Kirk. You have the big tight end in Evan Ingram. Like, you got a really good offense there with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And against a Chiefs defense is not perceived to be this great defense. You only scored 3 field goals. You scored 3 field goals by a college buddy of mine and Brandon McManus. That was a hellacious effort defensively by the Kansas City Chiefs. And then you go up against the Texans the next week and you get blown out by 20 points. And you made C.J. Stroud look like a Hall of Famer already. And last week, sure, in London, you take care of the Falcons. And now you get Buffalo in London. This is a game for the Jaguars where going into the year, we knew the Jaguars are most likely going to win the AFC South. And the AFC South's a little bit better than what we thought it was going to be. You knew the Jaguars, with the talent that they have, had the capability of being a double-digit win team. I thought they could be maybe the number 2 overall seed in the AFC with the bad division and the way that their schedule is. But with Jacksonville, after making a big first-year impression with Doug Peterson as the coach, Trevor Lawrence's first real year in the NFL, because Urban Meyer should be locked up and thrown in jail with the way that he handled the Jacksonville Jaguars. I can't even say in a full year because he did get fired before the end of that first year. But for Jacksonville, last year, they took a step of, we went from the number 1 pick in the draft back-to-back years to being a team that won their division, took a huge leap, and also won a playoff game where they had that crazy comeback against the Chargers, and then they were in it up against the Kansas City Chiefs and lost in the divisional round. So this year for Jacksonville, it's can you go from being a team that's expected to win the division, expected to be in the playoffs, to a bona fide Super Bowl contender. And up against the Chiefs, who were just getting Chris Jones back, who were just getting Travis Kelce back, and the Chiefs only scored 17 points. Like, if you would have told me before that game, Kansas City would have only scored 17 points against the Jaguars, I'd say, okay, Jaguars win what, 23-17, bare minimum? And they ended up losing that game, the Jaguars, 17-9. So now you have a team that's been in it the last few years, that is in the upper echelon of teams in the NFL, in the Buffalo Bills, and the Bills coming off an enormous victory up against the Miami Dolphins. The Jaguars have to win this game. I don't feel good about the Jacksonville Jaguars going into this week, but you have to win this game because if you don't, you lost to the Texans, you beat the Colts, you beat the Falcons, and against the 2 really good teams that you played, your offense did diddly squat against the Chiefs, and the Bills, we all know that they're a good team, but it's not like inconceivable that the Jaguars can't win this game. I don't think it's going to happen, But if you're ready to step into the heavyweights of the NFL and not just be a good team, not just be a team that we look at, double-digit win team, impressive roster, good coach, young up-and-coming talent. If you're ready to put your big boy pants on and you're ready to go make a Super Bowl march this year and try to be a bona fide Super Bowl contender, you win this game against Buffalo. Because you didn't take care of business against a Chiefs team that was vulnerable. Now you have Buffalo coming in, and Buffalo's flying high. Buffalo is now getting everyone back on the bandwagon. They're circling the wagons in Buffalo, and the Buffalo Bills are making you want to shout. That's what's transpiring right now with the Bills. Go humble the Bills this week. Go take the Bills down and go be the story on Monday where the Jacksonville Jaguars have shown you, even after an up and down start, that this is a football team that is capable of taking that next step this year. So those are the two teams this weekend that I can't wait to see what happens. I want to see if the Cowboys are ready for the big test, and I want to see if the Jaguars are ready for the big test. And both of those teams share the similarities where most football fans look at them as a good team, not a great team. You win this week, either of those teams, you get thrown into the great category. You get thrown into a team that we now have to monitor and seriously consider as a Super Bowl contender. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let's go to Craig in Portland, Oregon, next up on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Craig, what's happening?
Well, my opinion might not be too popular because it seems to be the play du jour, but I think we really need to get rid of the tush-push in this next offseason. That, to me, that's just not football. That's rugby. It shouldn't be allowed. I can't remember, a time maybe there was a rule against it. Maybe that got changed. But my other take, real quick, would be I think a team with a lot of pressure on them this week is the Rams, because the Rams have to decide whether they're actually tanking or whether they're trying to win with getting Cooper Kupp back, all the talent they have on offense, kind of missing a run game. But I think there's a lot of pressure on the Rams this week against Philly.
I think it's a great point, Craig, and thanks so much calling from Portland, Oregon, a place that I love to visit. Multnomah Falls, one of my favorite hikes that I've ever did go on. And in Portland, they have the double happy hour, which, gentlemen, Stu and also Samter, if you could ever get to Portland, Oregon, they do the normal happy hour, and then it's like happy hour 10 to close, which is just phenomenal. That's the one time.
10 to close?
Yeah.
Dangerous.
Phenomenal. It's the one time I've ever left my credit card in a bar. I was in Portland, Oregon. We started in Seattle, road trip to Oregon, then went all throughout the state of Oregon, me and like 3 or 4 friends in college. We had some buddies that lived out in Oregon from a sleepaway camp that we worked at. And one of our friends is like a local artist in Portland, and he's performing at this bar, and we were getting bombed. And then at 10 p.m., 10:30, they're like, oh, it's now happy hour again. I'm like, happy hour again? And I get back to the hotel that's 20 minutes away, and I look at my wall, and I go, I left my credit card there. And I go back, had to drive all the way back. My friend who's the local artist is like passed out on the bar with the guitar in his hand because he was imbibing as well. And the next thing I realized, they did have my credit card there. But yeah, dangerous, but a lot of fun. But when you get back to the caller's point, I kind of think the Rams are going to be in this game this weekend. Now, I look at that spread, Eagles -4. I think that's Vegas begging you to lay the 4 points. I would actually consider plussing the 4 points with the Rams because getting Cooper Kupp back, and now you have Puka Nacua too. I think everyone's going to be in on the Eagles. This may be the week where maybe the Eagles go down after some close calls because I don't love the Rams. I think there's too many people in that organization, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, with Stafford and Aaron Donald and Sean McVay. But now you get a big jolt with Cooper Kupp expected to play, and they announced that he is going to play in this game. The Rams, I think, are very much alive this weekend. Let's go to Anthony in Myrtle Beach next up on CBS Sports Radio. Anthony, what's happening?
What's happening, brother? What's going on with you?
Doing fantastic. Football Friday. What do we got?
Yes, sir. So I just wanted to hit base real fast. Yesterday you were talking about the Cowboys with Trey Lance and how he's just basically it was a dumb choice to chase after him.
No, I don't think it was a dumb choice. I just don't think he's ever going to actually play and start.
And that's my point. I think Jerry Jones picked him up, so he's a mole. I mean, the best way to beat your nemesis is to get an inside connection. So he knows the play calls. He knows the signs. He knows everything that's going on. So he's trying to gain a little bit of an advantage over the 49ers, so to say, coming from, the Niners, where Dallas can have the play call, don't switch up the signs, just try to get a little heads up. I think it's a shot in the dark. I'm sure they're smart enough to change their play calling, but, I mean, that's the only logical reason I see them going after Trey Lance.
Well, I think they more so went after Trey Lance. I think it has nothing to do with trying to get some intel on the 49ers. The only reason I think they went after Trey Lance is because it was a guy that was a number 3 overall pick that barely played, and we've seen Dak get injured before. I know Cooper Rush has played well, and they looked at it as we could get a young player in this league for basically nothing. That's why I think they did that. Ultimately, I don't care what intel Trey Lance has. It's not going to play an impact on the game. It's all coming down to if Dak Prescott, if he could step up and elevate his game on a big stage. And maybe this is the biggest game up until this point of the NFL season. I know it's only 5 weeks in, so that could be like a ridiculous statement, but this is an enormous game on Sunday Night Football that everyone's going to be tuned in for with the Cowboys and the 49ers. All righty, we'll take a break here on CBS Sports Radio. We'll come on back. We'll do a little onside, offside on the other side. 5 questions, 5 answers. We do that segment every Monday and Friday right here on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio.
Coach Prime, Deion Sanders here with us. We know Travis Hunter is a dog on both sides of the ball, but when you watch him as a coach, what do you see?
I feel like Travis is the most exciting player in college football on both sides of the ball. I feel like Travis Hunter will be drafted first round on both sides of the ball. Travis Hunter is a problem. He's not only a problem for the opposing teams, but he's going to be a problem when he goes to the next level to figure out what he's going to do. But he's going to tell you, I'm going to play both ways because that's just who he is.
Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
And you can stream the NFL on Westwood One for free, sponsored by AutoZone all season long. You can listen to every Westwood One broadcast of the NFL live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports or on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply. 5 questions, 5 answers. We do this every Monday and Friday right here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Let's get to a little Onsides, Offsides. Stu, hit it!
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb on CBS Sports Radio.
All right, Samter, what do we got?
All right, Kyler Murray is still recovering from his torn ACL, and Arizona is among the teams expected to be in play for Caleb Williams at the top of the draft. A new ESPN report by Dan Graziano says the Cardinals are still not sure whether they'll keep Murray beyond 2023. So onside, offside, Kyler Murray will be the starting quarterback somewhere in the NFL in 2024.
Oh, absolutely. This is onside. Kyler Murray will be a starting quarterback next year. Kyler Murray is one of those quarterbacks that are thrown into the conversation of he's a good quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback, but just because it hasn't worked out in Arizona, whether that's him not putting in the work or Cliff Kingsbury being a disaster towards the end of his tenure, Steve Keim not being a good GM towards the end of his tenure, or the Cardinals just having a good chance of having a good draft pick and maybe they want to pick a quarterback, which I don't know if that's going to be the case. The Cardinals have been competitive. I still think they're going to be in the top 10. The Texans, maybe they're not in the top 10. But if they can't get Caleb Williams, you got to reevaluate that conversation about just automatically trading Kyler Murray. Now, Shedeur Sanders is there. Maybe you take him. Michael Penix Jr., Drake May, whoever the quarterbacks may be. But if it doesn't work in Arizona, how many times have we seen this in the NFL before? There's been worse quarterbacks to get a second opportunity than Kyler Murray. So if it's not with the Cardinals next year, Kyler Murray will absolutely be a starting quarterback somewhere in 2024 in the National Football League. Number 2, what do we got?
Wow, is that the new voice of NFL Films right there? Zachary Gelb?
You know, some say that I do resemble the voice of God, John Facenda. And then I woke up from a good nap.
Okay,
that
must have been a great nap. No, that was a very good, deep voice just now. The
Alan
AFC
Roach, I think, is the current voice of the NFL at the Super Bowl, where he goes, "Welcome to the Super Bowl."
I know Scott Graham does a lot of stuff for NFL Films now as well. And you got that voice. The AFC South is wide open with
Checks in the mail, by the way, Samter. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Appreciate
You're welcome. I know,
Just-
seriously.
just-
Hopefully somebody at the league office is listening right now.
Stroking my ego right here. And I like Taylor Swift, too, if the NFL's listening. I'll give all the free promo to Taylor Swift as well.
The AFC South is wide open with all 4 teams sitting at 2-2. This weekend, the Titans travel to Indianapolis to take on Ryan Hickey's Colts.
Ugh.
Yeah, I know, right? I can't believe I just mentioned his name. Anthony Richardson is healthy, and Jonathan Taylor returns for Indy after missing the first 4 games. So onside, offside, the Colts will win the AFC South this season.
The Colts are my least favorite team in the NFL. I will admit, though, I do like Anthony Richardson, and he's been very entertaining this year, and they get back Jonathan Taylor. But this is a easy offside because guess what's going to happen? The Jacksonville Jaguars, who are 2-2 right now and haven't looked great, they're eventually going to win this division. So I'll take the Jags offside on the Colts winning the AFC South.
Offside.
Number 3.
All right, so Lane Kiffin took over the head coaching job for Ole Miss 4 years ago, and after going 5-5 his first year, he's amassed a 22-9 record the past 3 seasons, cracking the top 10 twice in that span. This year, the Rebels are 4-1 and ranked 16th with a big game against KJ Jefferson in Arkansas this weekend. So onside, offside, Kiffin's tenure with Ole Miss has been a disappointment thus far.
I don't know how anyone could say that Lane Kiffin's tenure with Ole Miss has been a disappointment. You just said it. His record's 22-9. What else can people expect to happen here with Lane Kiffin? Like, I never viewed Lane Kiffin when he joined the SEC and joined Ole Miss as someone that was going to win an SEC championship game. And he's in such a tough division, it's kind of impossible to expect them to get to an SEC championship game appearance. So with the way that the SEC has been structured, where it's really been Alabama and it's been Georgia, LSU has gotten into the fold here and there. A&M's supposed to have all this talent, but they never reached those expectations. You saw Florida a few years ago get to the SEC championship game. The SEC is just too tough. Maybe Kiffin 1 year could get the job done, but if I'm an Ole Miss fan, I'm happy, and I'm happy that he's still there because I thought he was going to go to Auburn this past offseason. So you asked me, Lane Kiffin's tenure with Ole Miss has been a disappointment thus far. No, absolutely not. I'll go offside. Offside. Number 4, what do we got here, Samter?
James Harden's future in Philly is up in the air, and after reports that his top destination, Houston, didn't even want to trade for him, it appears that the Clippers are the last and only team interested.
The last team standing here.
I know.
Jeez.
Now, according to The Athletic, the Sixers want Terrence Mann and multiple first-round picks for Harden, as opposed to getting multiple talent to put around Joel Embiid and build the championship team there. So it's surprising they want the picks rather than the players. However, onside, offside, a trio of Harden, Paul George, and Kawhi in L.A. would be a title contender in the West.
A title contender if you're competing to be the best load management team. To win an NBA championship? Absolutely not. I don't even know where the status of Kawhi Leonard is coming off that nasty injury last year. Paul George has improved his image the way that he played in the playoffs a few years ago when Kawhi did get hurt. But James Harden's just lazy. That's a guy that just wants the paycheck, wants the fame, and he's someone that can give you some good moments, but then he gets out of shape. He goes to too many strip clubs, which, hey, enjoy yourself the way that you want to do, but he doesn't prioritize winning a championship. So, no. If you would have said to me like 6 years ago that team was together, yeah, absolutely. It'd be a super team. But in the year of 2023, there's too much wear and tear on that body. I don't know where the commitment level is of all 3 of those players. So I would go offside on the trio of Harden, Paul, George, and Kawhi Leonard being a title contender.
Offsides.
All right, last one. The New York Mets cleaned house, firing skipper Buck Showalter and accepting the resignation of GM Billy Epler.
Or as Frank the Tank from Barstool says, Billy and Nepler.
Yeah, there
he
you
was
go.
terrible.
That makes sense. Now, Showalter won 101 games last year, but underachieved with just 75 Ws this year, upping his career record to 1727 and 1665. So he's above 500 with over 1,700 wins over his career. Now, another new report says that Buck is interested in the Angels' new manager vacancy after they fired Phil Nevin earlier in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
So onside, offside, Buck Showalter does deserve another managerial job.
I think it's time to enjoy retirement if I'm Buck. Because Buck is an old school manager. This is a game now where it drives me crazy, where analytics reign supreme, and you have some geek upstairs really just throwing out the lineup card to a manager like Buck Showalter. I know a few years ago, the Angels brought in Joe Madden, and it was a disaster, and they couldn't find a way to get Trout and Ohtani to the postseason. If I'm Buck, you've had a great career. You had a great year last year with the Mets until the end, and this year was just an unmitigated disaster. You could say he deserves another managerial job, so I guess I'll go Onsides there because he does have a great resume. But if I was Buck, I would then go play golf, go enjoy my retirement, and then walk away from Major League Baseball and go back to television if I was him. I thought he was good on TV when he was doing it locally in New York, and I think he did some national work as well. All righty, that's Onside Offside today on a very busy Football Friday edition of the Zach Gelb Show. We will take a break. We will talk some college football next, and from CBS Sports Network, former NFL and college player Kevin Carter is going to be joining us right here in our CBS Sports Radio studios. Loaded slate this weekend in college football. We'll preview it with Kevin Carter next on the Zach Gelb Show. Update time first, though. Here's the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
It's only 4 weeks into the season, but the Steelers will take on the Ravens Sunday, trailing their rivals by a game in the AFC North, and we'll have quarterback Kenny Pickett. He's off the injured list and ready to go despite suffering a bruised knee last weekend. The 2-2 Rams will have Cooper Kupp for the first time this year when they meet the Eagles, who will be without defensive tackle Fletcher Cox. The Packers' David Bakhtiari will need surgery on his injured knee and is done for the season. The Broncos sending Randy Gregory to the 49ers and a 7th-round pick in the spring for a 6th-rounder, while the Bears have dealt wide receiver Chase Claypool to the Dolphins for a swap of late-round picks in 2025, giving Chicago a 6th-rounder. One of college football's great rivalries will be renewed tomorrow in the latest chapter of the Red River rivalry for the 43rd time in this meeting. Both Texas and Oklahoma come in ranked, as the Longhorns are 3rd in the nation at 5-0. The Sooners are ranked 12th. Top-ranked Georgia will host number 20 Kentucky. A pair of games tonight. Illinois takes on Nebraska, and Kansas State looks to improve to 4-1 against Oklahoma State. I'm Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio is everywhere, Perloff, at home, in your car, and, of course, on your phone and tablet.
Maggie, you can find us on your local affiliate, Sirius XM Channel 158, or the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
This just popped into my head, Ed Orgeron. All these times we talked, you would end it with, "Go Tigers." What do you say now at the end of an interview?
Man, I got one chance to do it. Go Bengals.
Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, we continue. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. And now joining us in studio, former NFL defensive player, played his college ball at Florida, has over 100 career NFL sacks, and now is kicking ass and taking names from CBS Sports Network. That's our dear friend in Kevin Carter. Kevin, great to see you as always. How you been?
Thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate you coming in, but it's tough times around here, and you're a big reason for the demise of yours truly, because you do owe me $1. And with
I do owe you $1.
The price of living here in New York City, you also told me it was going to be 100 pennies from when I beat you in a Super Bowl bet, and still I don't have that $1. So I have to beg for change now.
Well, hopefully me coming down here to studio, I had a day off. I was in studio last night. We had a game on our network, some Conference USA action. But hopefully coming down, this is an olive branch. Like this is me.
That is true. I think this
making
is better.
Things right.
I think this is better than the $1. If I'm going to be honest with you,
I'll still pay you that $1, but in the meantime, you can rest assured that I'm doing the right thing.
It's been like 3-4 years.
It has.
You tell me that you're going to pay me that $1. That's like a girl saying, "Oh yeah, I'm going to call you back. Don't worry."
But aren't you encouraged that I'm actually here in studio though? Isn't that cool?
You're teasing us a little bit. That's what you're doing. Let me start you off with Alabama A&M. I think everyone's trying to figure out still what is the Alabama offense. And then for A&M, I know they lost their quarterback, but Max Johnson has experience before going back to his days at LSU. But A&M's a team that has a lot of talent, and we're all wondering if they could put it together.
A&M, Alabama is one of those matchups. It's like when you look at conference play across the country, there's somebody who has everyone's number. Okay, and conference games are always tricky. Every championship that you see someone hoisting a trophy at the end of the season, there was a conference game that they probably should have lost. And it was someone that had no business being on the same field with them from a, factual standpoint, like where they are, what their record is, how many yards, points per game, all those things. But they play this team that they know, and then they see every year. They just play them tough because they have their number. Texas A&M is that team for Alabama and has been a thorn in their side for the last couple of years. I think largely because of their ability to match up from a physical standpoint. I think along the line of scrimmage, what you're seeing is, you're seeing Elko's defense. You're seeing dudes, that put their hand in the ground that have been pedigreed and taught and coached in a certain way that it takes a while to build that. When you have that going, then you see the fruits kind of coming even after someone's gone. You see Mike Elko's moved on to Duke, but like I said, the remnants of the players that he developed and coached are still there. I think in the last couple of weeks, they have something like 28 or 30 tackles for a loss. I mean, something just stupid. So this defense has decided to come on. Max Johnson has been better than 60% all season long, and when he's had his chance, the last couple of games he's played pretty well. Actually had a 300-yard game. Actually had a couple touchdowns. So starting to look like he's the guy, and I think the rest of Texas A&M is starting to wake up finally.
So last year in the SEC, right? LSU loses early in the season to Florida State. Everyone's clowning Brian Kelly with the family videos and all those things. Yeah. And everyone forgot about them. And the next thing you know, they're in the SEC championship game where they lose to Georgia. Is that happening now with A&M where they had the early loss to Miami? Everyone's forgetting about them, and then they'll be in the SEC title game.
Well, it very well could work out that way because, going into this year, the SEC West was sort of an enigma. It was sort of wide open. Not with anyone stepping up and being that heir apparent person who's going to take control. I thought coming into the season that it would be LSU. The LSU really had my and still, I mean, they're at a point where after having dropped one to Ole Miss, it's going to be a little harder for them to do it. They'll probably beat each other up. But LSU was my team. But Texas A&M was another enigma that we just didn't know enough about because we didn't know how they would play or whether or not they would play complementary football. And I think that's what we're starting to see. The talent's always been there, but we're starting to see complementary football. Now we're seeing things kind of work out. I was in studio last night with Danny Cannell. He thinks that Bama's going down. He thinks that since he thinks that Texas A&M has their number and Bama's going to go down. I personally think that Bama's going to win out because I think that Bama knows what it is, and I think that Bama knows what it's not. So
I never pick against Alabama, and I can't stand Jimbo Fisher. Yeah. I think he's one of the more overrated coaches in the country.
Yeah.
I kind of like A&M though this weekend. I do.
It's definitely a game that will be interesting. It's one that I'm kind of waiting to see. We can prognosticate all we want, but even the expert's expert is going to be on bated breath, kind of waiting to see what's going to happen because we really don't know. I mean, obviously we don't know what's going to happen on any game, but we really don't know this one. Looking at Alabama's offense, Roydell Williams, Jace McClellan, Jaden Milroe, they're tough along the line of scrimmage, and their defense has recommitted itself to being old Alabama defense. Like I'm talking like the standard of old Georgia defense.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. I mean, Georgia's lost 28 players to the NFL draft in the last 2 seasons, but the fact that a guy like Jalen Carter is content to sit behind Jordan Davis because he trusts in the coaching and knows he's going to go first round, that's the type of development you're talking about. So I think Bama has kind of recommitted itself to being that team because they know, take everything else away, we're still 5 stars. We're still talented. We can still kick your butt. We can line up physically and beat you. And so I think giving themselves the best chance to win is kind of their plan going forward in lieu of developing, Simpson or Buckner or whoever else is there.
Kevin Carter here with us from CBS Sports Network. Does a tremendous job as a college football analyst. You touched on LSU a little bit. I had high expectations for LSU as well.
Yeah.
They've been the most disappointing team to me in college football through the first few weeks.
Their defense, and I think I like what they're doing in the run game. I think Logan Diggs and Caleb Jackson and Josh Williams, having someone basically be the leading rusher not named Jaden Daniels was the thing that I had the biggest problem with last year. I mean, Jaden Daniels he's dynamic. He's amazing. He's a one-man wrecking crew, but you can't put your quarterback in harm's way that much. He can't be your bread and butter because you need some bread and butter when people take away your bread and butter. So I like what they've been doing on the ground in terms of not, running him so much, but their defense came up short this past weekend at Ole Miss. I mean, you give up that many points, and I know Lane Kiffin can dial it up. I know he's an offensive genius.
You're not going to win, though.
But you're not going to win. You're playing Big 12 football. And that's just not, that's not going to work. So
when we take a look at Kentucky, I love Mark Stoops. I think he's one of the more underrated coaches in the country. I think he's a top 10 coach in the country.
Yep.
And we know what he did to your alma mater last weekend. Jeez, I think that kid Davis is still running for another touchdown. How alive is Kentucky this week against a Georgia team that people are saying is vulnerable now?
I think it's a farce. I think, and I sat in studio last night, and don't get me wrong, we're paid to be objective, and we're paid to truly investigate. And as much as I can give credit to, Ray Davis is averaging about $118 a game. They're turning in the Wildcats are rushing for about 170 yards per game. Their offensive line is stout. Their defensive line is stout. They're physical. They're built the right way. There's so many great things about what they're doing. Devin Leary's not wowing me at quarterback. Okay, and to me, when you talk about making hay against Georgia, we act like Georgia's vulnerable. We act like that's actually a thing. Like, okay, vulnerability when you throw two different running quarterbacks and an offense they've never seen or don't know what to think of in Auburn, yeah, you're going to have some success for a little while. When Spencer Rattler comes out and he's throwing it all over the yard, he's a good quarterback who can process. You face a quarterback like that, he's going to have some success for a half, and then they make adjustments, and then we come back down to reality, and I think we've seen that. But Georgia is not worried about us saying that they're vulnerable.
It's the same way that we talked about the Chiefs last year in the NFL. They're vulnerable and they won the Super Bowl.
They don't care. They're right now, they know they have Carson Beck. They know they don't have Stetson Bennett. They know they don't have the 29 guys that are playing on Sunday right now from the last two seasons. But what they do have is a type of buy-in from 4- and 5-star dudes like Jalen Carter who were waiting their turn, and now it's their shot. And they're every bit as talented as the guys who came before them. And we're seeing them be realized every weekend, and we're seeing them feather and basically take the evolutionary process of their quarterback, Carson Beck, slowly. He doesn't have to be the guy. He doesn't have to be the guy right now. He doesn't have to win games. We'll outpace you for a half, and then we'll beat your ass in the second half, and you'll lose the game. They're content to do that.
Are they, to you, still the best team in college football?
Until someone says different, yes. Because you can't make them – I haven't seen them have to win a game a different way.
No, it's a fair point that you bring up. To be the champ, you got to beat the champ. We could talk about Michigan. We could talk about the Pac-12. You got to find a way to beat Georgia.
And if you don't push him off his perch or make him change his course, he can basically still do the same thing he was doing and develop his quarterback. They can develop their quarterback at their own pace because no one's making them move.
And the schedule for them stinks.
The schedule is they're going to ride into the SEC championship game, and it's going to be easy. And I mean, but I think that kind of hurts the SEC though in terms of the scenario of them possibly getting two teams in. I think that's done. I think you won't have. After a while, you won't have significant representation in the SEC or in the top 25 of SEC teams like you will, let's say, the Pac-12 right now. Let's say some other conferences.
Big Ten, you could have two teams to get in again.
Big Ten, you could very well have two teams that get in because you're going to have two elite teams at the end of the season that will be left standing, and whether it's Michigan or the Ohio State University. But you don't have that in the SEC. The SEC is going to cannibalize itself, and teams are going to overachieve, and some teams are going to underachieve like LSU and get beat by someone that maybe they shouldn't lose to, and it's too hard. But that's where I think this year this is different. I think in years past we've said, the SEC, everything runs. Then I don't think the SEC is that strong. The quarterback play just isn't there across the league.
Wrap it up with Kevin Carter. Who wins Red River this week between Oklahoma and Texas?
I've got Texas. I do think we've been sleeping on Oklahoma, and I said as much. I think that, look, when you look at their defense, they came into last weekend giving up about 8.5 points a game. Dylan Gabriel is slinging it, 75% efficient. He's only thrown a couple of interceptions, and he's got over 1,500 yards. This team is built right, but they're not elite, I think, in all the ways that Texas is elite. I think Texas, you saw the physicality along the line of scrimmage, and that's the one common denominator that I don't quite think this Oklahoma team is ready for. And I think, obviously, we'll get our answer this weekend, who's better, Oklahoma and Texas, and who's going to assume that leadership role. But right now it looks to be Quinn Ewers and the Longhorns.
I got 30 seconds before we got to hit a break, though. On a scale of 1 to 10, where's your confidence with Billy Napier at Florida?
My confidence with Billy Napier is a 10 because I like him. My confidence in the staff that he's assembled and to think and to be so naive to think that he will not have to replace staff and get more players. That is the open-ended part. But as far as person to person, man to man, I've spent time with Billy Napier. I really like who he is, and I really like the process and the way that he's working his plan, going about doing it. But that doesn't mean that it'll necessarily work in this day and age in college football, especially at a branded program like Florida.
He is Kevin Carter. Does a great job, CBS Sports Network. I have exonerated you from the dollar. I do not need the dollar anymore. This is made up for it coming in studio. Always great to see you, my friend.
Give me your Venmo. I'll hit you.
I thought it was 100 pennies, my friend.
It keeps changing.
We'll take a break here. We'll come on back on a big football Friday. One more hour to play until we get on out of here at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. We still got picks to get to in the college front and the NFL as well. Zach Gelb Show coming on back after these short messages.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, away we go. Hour number 3 on the Football Friday. Zach Gelb Show, rocking and rolling right here, CBS Sports Radio, on the free Odyssey app, Sirius XM channel 158, and of course, in the YouTube chat. We have a great community of people. If you want to check out the show on YouTube, you could always check the link on my Twitter page, at Zach Gelb, and enjoy the wonderful conversation and the wonderful chat room that we do have going on YouTube. All righty. Let me do this, though. We're going to talk some more college football here in just a second. But I just want to circle back on a college football point that Kevin Carter, who just joined us in studio, did make. He is 100% right. Where we got accustomed to two teams from the SEC making the college football playoff, whether it's been Alabama and Georgia or whoever have been the two best teams in the SEC. That's not going to happen this year. The SEC is not strong as it's been. And last year, we saw a major turn where it was actually the Big Ten that put two teams into the college football playoff, with Ohio State backing themselves in after losing to Michigan and getting stomped out by Michigan. And then Michigan won the Big Ten, and they ended up losing to TCU, where we had maybe like the most improbable championship game ever, where we all knew that Georgia was going to be there before the start of the season, but no one ever thought that TCU was going to make the national championship game, let alone the college football playoff. But there they were, and it ended up being a massacre in the national championship game. This year, though, if there's going to be a conference that sends two teams to the college football playoff, it's not the SEC and it's not the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is the best conference in college football right now, but those teams are going to beat up on one another. You go through all those Pac-12 schedules, and you had at one point like 8 teams in the top 25 earlier in the season in the AP poll from the Pac-12. They're going to beat up on one another, and if you get to 2 losses, we've never seen any team make the college football playoff with 2 losses. The conference that's going to get 2 teams in this year, if there is a path for 2 teams to get in from one conference, is the Big Ten. because you could have a good chance with the way that it's still structured that it is by divisions and you have Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State all in one division. There's a good chance that whoever gets left out of the Big Ten championship game, an Ohio State or a Penn State as well, that they could only have one loss on the resume. And it may be a similar situation, eerily similar to last year, where a one-loss non-Big Ten champion gets in, but you're going to need help in other places. Like right now, if Florida State wins out and they're undefeated, even if Florida State has one loss and they win the ACC, and I know the ACC isn't that strong, but you do have a Florida State team, and I know these wins have not aged well, but they did beat the pants off of LSU in the second half to open up the season, and they survived up against Clemson. If you have a one-loss ACC champion Florida State team, I think they're going to get in. You take a look in the Big 12, the brands of Oklahoma and Texas are massive. We all know they're going to the SEC after this season. They play Red River this weekend at the Cotton Bowl. If one of those teams wins the Big 12 with even one loss, they're going to be going to the college football playoff this year. So you're going to need some help, and you're going to need, if you want two teams in from the Big Ten this year, either a team like Florida State or whoever wins the Big 12 to have two losses. Because if that's the case, they won't get in to the college football playoff. You have one loss, conference champ, you'll get in. But if you have two losses and you're the conference champ from the ACC or the Big 12, the committee, who operates under two words, eye test, they like to kind of use that as an excuse to put the one team in that didn't win the Big Ten that's at one loss in the college football playoff. So you look at it now, until someone beats Georgia in the SEC, I got to think Georgia's still going to make it. Michigan, this may be the best Michigan team that they've had in the last 3 years, and that's saying something. But you look at Wilson, who's been a touchdown machine for them. You have Corum and Edwards. McCarthy's really good. I know they've played nobody yet, but Nebraska does have a good run defense. I was at that game, and I know Nebraska's not a good team this year, but Michigan ran right through that defense like a hot knife through butter. And ultimately, Michigan, they have two games this year. It's the Penn State game, and then it's also the Ohio State game. And those are their two tests. And the same could be said for Penn State. They really only played two games this year. It's Michigan and it's Ohio State. And at least Ohio State, they've played like an actual opponent in Notre Dame. And I walked away from that game. I wasn't really impressed with Ohio State. I was more disappointed in Notre Dame with the kid dropping the interception and then Marcus Freeman getting only 10 people on the field when Ohio State runs into the end zone. So if you look at the chase to 4 right now, if I had to give you my best guess, I do think Georgia's in. I do think Michigan is in. You know what? This could be the year where a 2-loss conference champ gets in because it may come from the Pac-12, and that's the only way a 2-loss conference champion should get in. But whoever wins the Pac-12, with how dominant the Pac-12 is this year, I think they should get in the college football playoff. And right now I would say Washington. And then you look at that final spot, it could be a fight to the finish between Florida State, probably the only worthy ACC team of getting into the college football playoff. And then you look at Texas right now. If Texas could beat Oklahoma this weekend in Red River, they now have two great wins where Texas went on the road to Alabama in Tuscaloosa and they defeated the Crimson Tide, and they could beat Oklahoma this weekend, and they're expected to beat Oklahoma this weekend in Red River, where we started to see Brent Venables get his act together with his second year. The defense has improved immensely this season from the garbage defense it was a year ago, and now Dylan Gabriel is playing some good football. So that's how you kind of monitor the race right now and the chase to the final 4 teams. It's going to take some teams to go down for the Big Ten to get 2 teams into the college football playoff, but that's what happened last year, where when Ohio State lost to Michigan, everyone thought their season was over, and then you had a late Clemson loss when Clemson had a backdoor chance to get in. You had other teams go down and just falter, and you sat there and you're like, okay, Ohio State's going to find a way to get into the college football playoff. Remember, Saban was on ESPN and they had 2 losses, and he was like, oh, well, if we played this team in the college football playoff, we would be the favorite. And, it's a fair argument. You can't really argue it from Nick Saban. But what I would say to Coach Saban is you had an opportunity to get in if you only had one loss. Because the committee would have gone with Alabama last year if they had one loss compared to Ohio State. But you had two losses, and also you were favorite in both those games. What was it? I believe against LSU, and I remember it was definitely Tennessee. It may have been LSU, which is the other game that they did drop last year. So there was no excuse for Bama last year, and there was no reason to put Bama in the college football playoff. But if I'm a Texas fan, you got to take care of business this weekend. But you hope Alabama, that one loss to you was just an anomaly for Bama, and you are rooting for Bama to beat A&M this weekend because you want that victory if you're Texas up against Alabama to age well, because look at kind of Florida State. Florida State, they have a victory against Clemson, who's not strong, and Dabo Swinney is just so arrogant. And then you also have a victory up against, for Florida State early in the year up against LSU. And the LSU team already has two losses. And LSU, as Kevin Carter even just said, and I agree with him, they're the most disappointing team in college football. That was a team where when I was making my predictions before the start of the year, I picked Florida State to win the ACC. I picked Texas to win the Big 12, but I didn't have either in the college football playoff because I thought they would have some losses attached to their resume. I actually had two Big 10 teams and two SEC teams in the college football playoff, and it was Georgia and LSU, and then it was Michigan and Ohio State. But you look at a program like Florida State, and it matters how the victory that you have, how it ages throughout the season. Like, you look at that Florida State victory against LSU, it's not aging well because LSU already has two losses, and I expect them to have a few more losses before the season is all said and done. So let's put a bow on this conversation, and let's just get what we're going to really look for this weekend in college football. Bama and A&M. I said it to Kevin Carter. I'll say it again. I never like picking against Alabama. I have the utmost respect for Nick Saban. Nick Saban and Alabama remind me a lot like the Patriots, where a lot of people try to declare the dynasty dead. And I'm talking about before Brady left, because now the Patriot dynasty is definitely dead. But you try to declare the dynasty's dead, and anytime they don't find a way to get to a college football playoff, which was the first time last year, or get to a national championship game and win the national championship game, it's like, Alabama's crumbling. Alabama is a disaster. Alabama just doesn't have a quarterback right now. That's what it is. Like, Jalen Milroe may be better than what he's put on tape so far, and now they're back to him. I don't think Nick Saban wanted to bench Jalen Milroe after the loss to Texas, but I think for the first time, Saban actually heard the public pressure and the public outcry. They go to the other two quarterbacks. They both stink. Now you're back to Jalen Milroe. Alabama has a really good defense. Alabama is back to Alabama before we heard of the names of a Jalen Hurts, a Tua Tagovailoa, a Mac Jones, and a Bryce Young, where it's their defense that wins, and it has to be the run game that wins, and you need the quarterback to just manage the game and find a way to put up like 2 touchdowns a game. That's going to be the formula this year for Alabama to win. But I look at this A&M team, and I've said it all throughout the week. I don't believe, because I don't trust Jimbo Fisher, that A&M is going to go on to do what LSU did last year, but I just see the same script playing out right in front of our eyes, where last year LSU lost early on in the season by an extra point to Florida State, and then no one talked about LSU the rest of the season, and we all woke up in the SEC title game, and it was like, wow, look at Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly's in the SEC championship game where you knew they were going to lose to Georgia, but at least they were there up against Georgia. Maybe that's happening right now with A&M, and Max Johnson's a better quarterback than what people give him credit for. I know Connor Wigman's now out for the season. They got so much talent, so much firepower at A&M. I'll say this. If we don't see a victory this weekend from A&M, and I have the utmost respect for Alabama, if you're a fan of the Aggies, I don't understand how you could justify keeping Jimbo Fisher as your head football coach. Jimbo Fisher has to win this game this weekend. This is a must-win for Jimbo Fisher because his team was embarrassing up against Miami. They were embarrassing last year with all this talent. Jimbo's been there long enough. We all know he makes so much money, and that's the only reason why he still has the job, because he probably should have got fired last year if it wasn't for the enormous buyout in his contract and how much money they would have to owe him and pay him. But Jimbo Fisher has an Alabama team that we could call vulnerable, and people are questioning Alabama. There's no pressure on any coach more this weekend than the coach at A&M. He has to win this game. If Jimbo Fisher doesn't win this game, I don't want to hear from any A&M fan why Jimbo Fisher should still be the coach. Take the excuses, crumble them up, throw them out the window. Jimbo Fisher must win this weekend. And I do think he is going to slightly get the victory and just survive up against Alabama. Kentucky and Georgia. Here's what scares me about Kentucky. I love their coach in Stoops. I love their running back when he was at my alma mater in Temple a few years ago before transferring, going to Vanderbilt, and then Kentucky. Kentucky's coming off a dominant victory against Florida. Even Mark Stoops said it to us earlier in the week on this show. He didn't like the effort in practice, and he had to go after his team a little bit. We all look at Georgia. Georgia's the Chiefs from last year, where we all sit there and say they could be a team that could be beat. They could be a team that could be got, and still no one takes them down. I will trust that this is a coming out party for Carson Beck, the quarterback of Georgia. We know all the dogs that Georgia has on the defensive side of the ball. I do like Georgia to win the game. Kentucky will give you kind of like a South Carolina effort, and Kentucky's a better team than South Carolina. Well, they'll show up for the first half, but as the game goes on, the talent of Georgia will prevail. And then finally, Red River, Texas, and Oklahoma. Who needs this win more? And I think it's a fascinating question because Sark is starting to get people to believe in what he's building, with Arch Manning also waiting in the wings. And Quinn Ewers has played a really good year. And Texas has aspirations to not only win the Big 12, but get to the college football playoff. And they already have the best win in the country, taking down Alabama in Tuscaloosa. But you look at Oklahoma, even with the national, playoff picture for Texas, and you could make that case. I think there's more pressure here, or who needs to win the game more? It's actually Oklahoma. There's probably more pressure on Texas because they already got the big victory. Now people are believing. And if you don't win this game, it's like, all right, you took 2 steps forward, but then 1 step backwards. But you look at Oklahoma, this is a statement victory if he could get the job done for Brent Venables, where Venables was tied at the hip with Dabo Swinney for years, and people never thought he was going to leave. He had like the best job in the country, assistant coach, defensive coordinator of the Clemson football team, and he said, I'm not going to leave until I get a great job. Then a school that he knows very well in Oklahoma comes calling after Lincoln Riley jumps ship and goes out to the West Coast to USC and takes Caleb Williams with him. And all of a sudden now, Oklahoma last year had a miserable season that Oklahoma fans are not accustomed to. So Venables is off to a really good start. The defense is playing well. And Dylan Gabriel, coming over from UCF from 2 years ago, is playing some solid football. So for Oklahoma, this is your first statement victory under Venables, and we'll see if they get the job done. So it's weird how I'm going to phrase this. I think there's more pressure on Texas because they've already made the big statement this year. But in terms of who needs to win this game more, it's actually Brent Venables, because if you lose this game, then maybe some of the similar feelings start to pop up from last year, which was a disastrous season for Oklahoma. So those are some thoughts on this weekend in college football. You could jump aboard. We got about 40 minutes to play. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. We'll take a break here on the Zach Gelb Show. When we come on back, a good friend, Ryan Horvat's going to join us from BetMGM tonight. He'll give us some thoughts on the college football landscape, and also we'll go head-to-head, and I'll give you some NFL picks for this weekend. This season, I am a lovely 6-5-1. So we're above 500. We've been okay. That one game that was a push, Sean McVay, I still don't forgive you. Because that was when McVay was going up against the 49ers, and the spread was, I think I got it at 9.5, and it was a 10-point game, and as the time was expiring, he elected to kick a field goal. So McVay, I don't like you for that. And I think the NFL should launch an investigation if you had some money on the game, if I'm being honest. So Ryan Horvat joins us next for NFL picks and some college picks too. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, you can stream the NFL on Westwood One for free, sponsored by AutoZone. All season long, you can listen to Westwood One's broadcast of the NFL live on the NFL app by asking Alexa to open Westwood One Sports or on the Odyssey app. Get in the zone, AutoZone. AutoZone's free battery testing and charging is available for free at your local AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Restrictions apply. Ryan Horvat joins us right now from BetMGM tonight via the BetQL family. If you can't see Ryan right now, he's hiding that Notre Dame logo. And I just wonder, Ryan, where's your confidence with this Notre Dame football team who should have defeated Ohio State and then last week had to really scratch and claw to get the dub against the Dukies?
Yeah, I'm glad actually that we're starting here tonight, Zach, because I think this Louisville crowd is going to be juiced for this game. I'm a big Jeff Brom guy. I actually grabbed Louisville at 6.5. The number actually seems about right because Notre Dame's the more talented team. They have the more talented offensive and defensive line. Audric Estime is the best running back in the country. I'm a big Sam Hartman guy. And also, the one issue with Notre Dame this season on the offensive side of the ball has been throwing the ball outside the numbers, the wide receiver play, but they get a little bit healthier. They get Jaden Thomas back this week. They get Jaden Greathouse. But here's what concerns me. I just feel like this is going to be a field goal game. I think Notre Dame survives, but man, look at the last couple of weeks. How many more games could you continue to get up for? It's kind of like Colorado, right? You're getting everybody's best shot. 2 weeks ago, it was Ohio State. You lose in heartbreaking fashion at home. You turn around, you travel, you take on Duke and Mike Elko and that team. You need Sam Hartman, a ridiculous 4th and 18 run just to survive in that game. So I like Louisville with the points. I think this is going to be a close game, and I love what Brom's doing year one there.
So Ryan Horvat's first pick, he goes with Louisville plus the 6.5 points against his Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I want to throw you to Alabama A&M. Alabama's a 2.5-point favorite. I like A&M, though, this week, and I never, ever, ever like Jimbo Fisher. Where are you at between this game, between the Crimson Tide and the Aggies?
I'm glad we're on the same side here because we're friends, and I want us both to have good weekends. It's my birthday weekend here, man. A&M always plays Bama tough. I hate betting against Nick Saban, but here's the thing. I worry about the health of the starting quarterback over at Alabama. And if we have to see Tyler Buckner in this game, and it's not Milroe,
good night.
Bama could be in big trouble, man, because they've reinvented this offense. No longer are we seeing like the Tua offense or the Bryce offense. This is back like the old school Bama offense, where now they're running the ball. It's quarterback design runs. It's Milroe having to use his legs. And here's what scares me about Bama. Their offensive line, that's what I felt really good about coming into the season, other than their defense. On paper, and when they get off the bus, they look like they should be the best offensive line in the SEC. They're getting pushed around a little bit. Texas A&M, their front, man, they're really good. They're tough defensively. A little bit worried just with Mac Johnson. I like Max Johnson. We talked about this last week. He's a veteran quarterback. He's seen it all. But Connor Wegman, he's better using his legs. And with Johnson, the last couple weeks, the thing that makes me nervous, he's prone to some turnovers. So if he coughs it up a couple times, Bama could steal this one. But I'm with you. I like A&M. I think they have the better weapons. Bama just doesn't have their usual weapons in that wide receiver room.
The game I'm most excited for is Red River, Oklahoma, Texas. I feel like you got to just bet the over in this one. It is 61 points. Texas is a 5.5-point favorite. The Ryan Horvat play here from BetMGM tonight is what?
Oh, no. Well, we won't be on the same side on this one on Saturday because all right, this is scary.
You like the under?
I like the under.
Oh, you're so
boring. I like both of these teams, Zach, coming into the season, their defense, right? Year two for Venables. Their defensive line right now, you look at stuff rate, they lead the country. They're 10th in EPA per rush right now. They're 3rd in defensive line yards, all the nerd stats. The defense is for real. Now, then again, though, they haven't seen an offense like Texas. But Texas, the one area they've struggled, the numbers look good. They're averaging 5 yards per carry. But that's because they hit a bunch of explosives, and they had a 200-yard outburst last week against Kansas, whose run defense is outside the top 75. They've really struggled to replace Bijan. I think this is going to be a lower-scoring game. And, if we got to 6.5, I might take Oklahoma. Texas should win this game, but I think it's going to be close, man. I really like what Venables is doing. I think the under's the play here, though.
What side do you like, Kentucky, Georgia? Kentucky comes off a big win against Florida. We had Soups on earlier in the week, and he wasn't happy with his team's effort in practice. He was like, Zach, it's a good point you make, how you get team to refocus after you have a big victory and you have another big opponent because they have to give everything to go take down Georgia. I look at this 14.5-point spread. I have all the respect in the world for this Kentucky program, but I feel like this is Vegas begging everyone to plus the points, so I feel like I should lay it with Georgia.
You said it right there, right? Because you got Kentucky is coming off a victory over Florida, who, let's remember, though, Florida was a projected 5.5-win team with Graham Mertz as their starting quarterback, right? And so you come into that game, and here's what I don't I actually thought we might get to 13.5 because I like Georgia. I'm with you. I laid the 14.5. I wanted a better price. I don't think we get there though. And I think that's very telling, right? Because Georgia's had to rally the last 2 weeks. We haven't seen that in forever from double-digit deficits. They don't look very good, but we also got to remember they're getting a little bit healthier on the offensive side of the ball. Carson Beck now has a couple starts under his belt. They got McConkey back last week. Brock Bowers is the best non-quarterback in college football. I'm really hoping that he gets some Heisman looks because I did play some futures there. But I think Georgia's the right side here. Kentucky, it looked really good against Florida. I was actually surprised the way they ran the ball, but Devin Leary just hasn't really looked the way that he looked at North Carolina State. I worry, man. He's coming off a torn pec last season. I don't know how healthy he is. The wide receivers have had way too many drops. I think this is the perfect buy low spot on Georgia, who is still the best team in the SEC.
Ryan Horvat here with us from BetMGM tonight via BetQL. We'll get to the NFL part of this segment. We'll go head-to-head on picks. Stuart Kovacs, hit the music, please. All righty, now it's official here. Now we get the big NFL Films music. It's Zach Gelb and it's Ryan Horvat right here on CBS Sports Radio. It's CBS Sports Radio going up against our friends at BetQL. I'll start things off, Ryan. The Cincinnati Bengals. This is probably a sucker bet. It's probably too good to be true. But they gotta win this week. I know the Cardinals are scrappy. I know everyone loves the story of Mr. Boop, 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 and Jonathan Gannon and also Joshua Dobbs. But I like the Bengals this week, laying the 3 points. Give me Cincinnati minus the 3 is my first pick. What do you got?
All right, I'm going to come out of the gate swinging, Zach, because this is the debut of our little duel right here, and I'm going to go with the Cowboys. Now, I played them at 4. We're down to 3.5, 3 in some shops. I'm fine with whatever number because I think the Cowboys are actually going to win this game outright. Give me the Cowboys money line. I don't care. So the 49ers have ended their season the last 2 years. But I like this Cowboys offense, man, with Tony Pollard as the lead back. Michael Gallup has had back-to-back 60-yard receiving performances. He looks like Michael Gallup before he got injured in 2019. Brandon Cooks is getting healthier every week, learning the offense a little bit better. I like CeeDee Lamb. I want more Tony Pollard, especially in the red zone. I think that would solve their red zone issues. Defensively, though, there's not a better pass rush in the league. And so, Trista, my co-host, she's a big Cowboy fan. She's worried about the middle of the field, obviously, because you have George Kittle. But with that pass rush, we might see George Kittle use more in pass protection as a blocker. He's one of the better pass blocking tight ends in the league. And Debo didn't look very good last week. I think he's a little bit banged up right now. So I like the Cowboys, a revenge game after they've lost in embarrassing fashion the last 2 years in the playoffs. Even though those games are close, I say embarrassing because look how they've ended. Last year, Ezekiel Elliott's your center. The year before, you call a quarterback draw with no timeouts. And I think they get their revenge, though. I'm going with McCarthy over Shanahan, which is always scary.
All righty, so I'll give you the Cowboys at plus 3.5. That's the number that I'm looking at right now. For my next pick, go, Pack, go! Give me the Green Bay Packers. I saw Jimmy G was just cleared out of concussion protocol, so he'll play this week. I don't care. I think this is a good spot here for the Packers to get back right against a defense that's not all that good outside of Max Crosby with the Raiders. I love Jordan Love in this game. I love me some Aaron Jones. I love me some Christian Watson. And I love me some cheeseheads and some cheese curds as well. So give me the Packers to get to 3-2. And I'm getting a point in this game. Yeah, give me the Pack +1.
Great pick. I was going to go with that one, but now I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I'm going to throw out the over, but that's not going to be a duel with you. Give me here's the disgusting hold your nose Horvat classic of the week. Let's go with the Minnesota Vikings at home with that stupid chant, skull, that horn. The Vikings are going to keep this game close. The Vikings might even win this game outright.
Ooh.
Backs against the wall. We know how terrible their pass defense is. It's a pass defense that's so bad that they gave up 300 yards to Daniel Jones twice last season. And the Vikings, though, they could score some points. I think it's going to be a big Justin Jefferson game. I'm going to play Justin Jefferson to score a touchdown in this game.
Love it.
I like the Vikings. Anything over a field goal, they'll probably lose. And they'll find a way to lose this game, but I think they're going to keep it close. So give me the Vikings plus 3.5 right now over the Kansas City Chiefs. Travis Kelce just celebrated his birthday. He's distracted. Maybe him and Taylor Swift broke up. Maybe they were never really dating. I don't really love the other weapons yet. Give me the Vikings here, Zach.
All right, so 2 picks down each, 1 to go. I go the Bengals laying the 3, the Pack plus the 1. Horvat takes the Cowboys plus 3.5 and the Vikings plus the 3.5. You talked about holding your nose. This is going to be a hold your nose and stab your eyes out type of game. It's the Jets and the Broncos. I can't stand the Denver Broncos. I think they're an obnoxious football team, but there's too much Jet love here with Zach Wilson, where now people are trashing Rodney Harrison for just saying what everyone said about Zach Wilson before he played his best game ever against the Kansas City Chiefs. I know the only thing that scares me here is the Nathaniel Hackett revenge game. But Sean Payton, you can't lose this game, and you got to win going away after you ran your mouth this offseason going after poor Nathaniel Hackett. I don't like it. I don't even feel good about it. But I look at the Broncos minus the 2.5 points. I'll hold my nose and I'll lay the 2.5 points with the Denver Broncos. With that dumb chant in that stadium, too. Incomplete! After every incomplete pass, the dumbest chant in the NFL. And I got to smile out of Stuart Kovacs because he's a Raiders fan and he can't stand those obnoxious, dopey Denver Broncos fans, even though my sister and my niece and also my brother-in-law do live currently in the Denver area. But I go with the Broncos laying the 2.5 points.
Hey, that's a great area. I would be there every other weekend, especially with the money that you're making, Zach. I see you in your studio right now. We're
be going to the dispensary is what he's saying.
We can do that in Maryland now, too, baby, and DC. Hey, me and you were in agreement on that one, actually, though. Nathaniel Hackett, Sean Payton could not lose that game, Zach. All right, I'm going to throw another one at you, though. The last 21 times these teams have played and a team's been favored more than 3 points, if you took the dog, you would have won 20 of those games. These games are always decided by a field goal or less, so it seems so easy, right? We're up to 4.5 right now. I should just grab the Steelers at home. I'm not going to do that, though. You know why? The Steelers are a mess. The defense, a little bit overrated. I love TJ Watt, but right now, when they're not getting pressure, and their secondary is getting exposed, man. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I would actually feel better about the Steelers if Mitchell Trubisky was going to start.
Oh, Trubisky. Jeez.
Kenny Pickett has the higher ceiling. He's
small
the better
hands,
quarterback.
too.
But Kenny Pickett, Zach, is playing with a big brace on his leg right now. It looks Trubisky could move around. And, man, I've seen enough Matt Canada. He fooled me. He fooled us all this preseason. Kenny Pickett was pushing the ball down the field.
It was humming.
I've seen that. You know who is pushing the ball down the field? Lamar Jackson. Yeah. Look at the intended air yards the last couple weeks. They're getting a little healthier on the offensive line. I like the Ravens. I'm really high on the Ravens this season as long as everybody stays healthy, which I know we've already had a bunch of injuries, but I love Baltimore, man, with Todd Monken calling the play. So I'll go Ravens over the Steelers. So 1 favorite and 2 dogs for me this week.
So Ryan Horvat goes with the Ravens laying the 4, the Vikings plus the 3.5. Do your skull chant, the Cowboys plus the 3.5, and I take the Bengals -3, the Packers +1, and the Broncos laying the 2.5 points. You can listen to Ryan Horvat each and every evening on the BetQL network on his BetMGM Tonight Show. Ryan Horvat, appreciate it, and we'll do it again next week.
Thanks so much for having me. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you. There he is, Ryan Horvat. Will come on back. We will reset the poll question when we return. Is it time to trade Justin Fields, or did you see enough last night to say, the Bears have something? They should use that draft capital somewhere other than the quarterback position. Let's get to the latest CBS Sports Radio update with the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, Steelers quarterback Kenny Pickett made it through the week well despite a bruised knee and is officially off the injured list and good to go for Sunday against the Ravens. Cooper Kupp will be back for the Rams this weekend, while the Eagles will be without Fletcher Cox for that game. David Bakhtiari's season is over. He'll need more surgery on his injured knee, and Jimmy Garoppolo has been cleared from concussion protocol. Randy Gregory, released by the Broncos, has now reportedly been traded to the 49ers, along with a 7th-round pick for a 6th-rounder going back to Denver. After being inactive for the last 2 games, the Bears have sent wide receiver Chase Claypool to the Dolphins for a swap of late-round picks in 2025, giving Chicago a 6th-round pick. Texas and Oklahoma will meet tomorrow in the Cotton Bowl in the latest edition of the Red River rivalry, and Longhorns head coach Steve Sarkisian knows this is no ordinary game.
What an honor it is to be part of this game and to be part of this rivalry. 119th time Texas and OU have played in the Red River rivalry. A lot of great players, a lot of great teams, a lot of great coaches, and we don't take that lightly.
Sarkisian as the 3rd-ranked team of the nation. The Longhorns at 5-0. The Sooners also at 5-0, ranked 12th. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, it's Amy Lawrence. Be sure to listen to CBS Sports Radio at home. Just ask Alexa to play CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Since they're asking in the YouTube chat, I will comply here on a Football Friday, and we'll quickly deviate for about a minute to a little Major League Baseball. Just the picks in the ALDS and NLDS, I'll give them to you real quickly. I'm rooting for the Orioles over the Rangers. The Rangers, even though the Orioles are a much better team on paper, the Rangers do scare me. They've had to deal with some injuries, especially in the rotation. But I'll take the Orioles with their youngsters to punch their ticket to the ALCS and really make that pick for one of our loyal listeners, Brian, who I know is a big Orioles fan. Twins and Astros, I thought the environment in Minnesota was incredible, but I said it at the trade deadline, and I'll say it again early, the All-Star break. Until someone takes down the Astros in the AL, I'm not going to pick against Houston, so I'll take Houston to prevail up against Minnesota. Braves in Philadelphia, this is revenge for the Braves after last year where the Phillies bounced them out of the postseason. That Atlanta offense is just ridiculous, but the Phillies right now are hot. And I know this series starts off in Atlanta, but when it goes to Philly, last year the Fight-Ins were 6-2 at home in the postseason. But I'll give the slight edge. I think this is going the distance, but I'll give the slight edge to Atlanta. And that Diamondbacks team, I like them. I do. Corbin Carroll is so fun to watch. And they found a way after getting off to a great start. And then they started to take a step back to still get into the postseason. I know the Dodgers are banged up in the rotation, but that Dodgers offense led by Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, I'm not going to pick against them against the Diamondbacks. That is, the two matchups here. You get in the NL side, an NL East teams going at it, and then two NL West teams. But to advance to the next round, I guess I'm going all chalk here, which usually does not work, but I'll take the Braves to meet up against the Dodgers in the NLCS, and then in the ALCS, I'll take the O's to go up against the Houston Astros. But it is time to answer our Ask the Pros question of the day, and it's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Jim in Chicago says, are you believing now once again in Justin Fields after his last two performances? You could submit a question by tweeting at CBS Sports Radio or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. So I'll answer the question first. Am I believing in Justin Fields again? It's never that I didn't believe in Justin Fields. It's just, do I believe in Justin Fields to get the job done in Chicago? I think Justin Fields could be a good quarterback. I think Justin Fields, and I hate this term, but I'll use it here, has a high ceiling. Justin Fields last year was marvelous running the football. He needs to improve as a passer, but he did a damn good job last night and really the last 2 weeks passing the football. Now, I'm not ready to say that Fields is the guy in Chicago because the last 2 weeks you were going up against a Broncos defense that stinks. And then against the Commanders, the last 2-3 years we've been told the Commanders have this great defense. Yeah, because of the names, because of the talent that they have on defense. But Jack Del Rio has done a bad job as the defensive coordinator. He should no longer be the defensive coordinator of the Washington Commanders. Ron Rivera is sticking with him. And I give credit to Fields because no one gave them a shot last night against the Commanders. And we know the Commanders aren't this great football team. And you find out right before the game, unfortunately, that Dick Butkus did pass away, and rest in peace, and our condolences to the Butkus family. And the Bears had a great showing last night in honor of Dick Butkus with the way that Justin Fields and DJ Moore had that connection and the way that the defense for Chicago did play as well, because that's a good Commanders offense. They have some talent there, and I thought we would have seen more of Terry McLaurin and more of Jahan Dotson last night. But the thing is, with the rookie contract, and when you bring in a quarterback here on his first contract, Fields is already in year number 3. So, like, year 1, it's a wash. Year 2, get better. And then year 3, you got to go contend and be a playoff team. We know the Bears are nowhere close to being a playoff team. I give them credit because it looked like this was about to flip upside down and become a disaster. And to the credit of Justin Fields, he kind of blocked out the coaching or blocked out the noise, and they incorporated, miraculously, DJ Moore into the offense. I don't know where he was the first few weeks of the season, just like how I didn't kind of know where he was when he was supposed to join us on the show earlier and never called us. But DJ Moore is now back. DJ Moore, I use this term like a Keenan Allen wide receiver. And what I mean by that is there's a few wide receivers in the NFL where everyone goes, oh, he's the most underrated wide receiver in the league, right? Terry McLaurin's one of those guys. And DJ Moore is another one of those guys where he's a top 10 wide receiver. And yeah, he's an exceptional wide receiver. And look at the bad quarterback play that he put up with in Carolina. And the last 2 weeks, it's not brain surgery here, right? You don't need a PhD in football to figure out that you should be utilizing and implementing DJ Moore into your game plan. And when you have him being that number one wide receiver, which you traded him to be and traded for him to be, that's when Justin Fields takes off. But I think that Justin Fields could be a good player. I just don't believe he's going to be the quarterback of the Bears next year. And I'll get to the poll question right here. The Bears will blank Justin Fields this offseason. Fill in the blank is probably the way that I should say it. That doesn't sound right when I just go, the Bears will blank Justin Fields this year, because most of the people think that's a curse word there, Samter.
Yeah, because every time you read that, I think that you're saying something else. Like ad-libs, I'm going to put in the dirtiest, most obscure word that I can possibly think of.
Well, for people that don't have a dirty mind like Samter, which, let's be real, I also have a dirty mind, and Stu has a dirty mind.
This is sports radio. We all have dirty minds.
Yeah, you're not wrong. We're very sophomoric in our humor. But when I fill in the blank on the poll question here, it's the Bears will fill in the blank with Justin Fields this offseason. And don't let your mind go anywhere. There's only two choices. It's trade him or keep him. I think they're going to trade him. Now, you could tell me that Fields continues to play this way, and maybe they don't get the number one overall pick, even though they have a good chance with their own pick and then the Panthers pick. And then just maybe, if you don't get the number one overall pick, you don't love Shador, you don't love Drake May, you don't love Michael Penix, whatever it may be, and you go, okay, we could get Marvin Harrison Jr., the offensive lineman from Penn State, or a solid defensive player like Jared Verse from Florida State, and you get two big pieces to pair up with Fields and to pair up with Marvin Harrison Jr. But I just think there's such a good chance that the Bears are going to get the number one overall pick, where the last 2 weeks, I don't think are reality in the win-loss column for the Bears, where they should have beat the Broncos and they choked that game away, and they beat the Commanders. Like, this team at best is only going to win, 4 games this year? And if you have 4 wins, maybe you aren't the number one overall pick. But even if you don't get the number one overall pick because of your own record, the Panthers, they're the worst team in the league right now. The Panthers have showed you nothing this year. And their line stinks. They got no weapons. They have a good defense, but that defense can only hold up for so long when the offense is giving you nothing. And I look at the Carolina Panthers as a team that's destined to be in the number one overall draft slot this year. And unfortunately for the Panthers, you don't have that pick, because to go get something, you have to give up something. And you made that move with Bryce Young, and I hope they just don't ruin Bryce Young. So if they get the number one overall pick because of the Panthers, with how generational of a talent Justin Fields, Caleb Williams is sought out to be and being talked about, I think they're going to pull the trigger and take Caleb Williams and then trade off Justin Fields. And if Justin Fields continues to play well, you'll get a good amount back for Justin Fields. Even if he doesn't play well, I still think you're getting a second-round pick for him, bare minimum. And then you have another first-round pick, which you could trade back, or you could go get an offensive lineman, or you could go get a Marvin Harrison Jr. as well. So I know right now maybe this is in the moment, and that's why the majority of people say keep, where the Bears will keep Justin Fields this offseason. If he didn't play the way that he did last night, or if we put out this poll question, here's a better way to say it. If we put out this poll question yesterday, there's no doubt about it, everyone would have said trade Justin Fields at the end of the season. Because I think there's an acknowledgement that the Bears have messed up Justin Fields, and Justin Fields could still be good. But eventually, you could only give a guy so many opportunities in the current spot, and I'm still operating under the belief that at the end of the year, Poles will be out of a job, Eberflus will be out of a job, and Fields will get a fresh start, which could be the best thing for him, because the Bears have just been disastrous with quarterbacks and never had a 4,000-yard passer, and Fields will be somewhere else this time next year. So I cast my vote for that they're going to trade Justin Fields in this offseason. But it's crazy how the pendulum swings after one big-time game that he did play, and really 2 games the last 2 weeks. And I know he leads the league in passing touchdowns, but I think it's more just so the timing of the situation and not an actual reflection of who the quarterback is. And I said this earlier in the week, and I'll say it again. If I'm a team like Atlanta, I would call and try to go get Justin Fields. I don't think the Bears are going to trade him in season, even though, I forget who it was, but I saw someone on ESPN this morning was advocating trade him now and strike while the iron's hot right now, because who knows how we're going to be talking about Justin Fields in maybe 6 to 7 weeks. And it may not be because of him failing, but more so the Bears failing him. All righty, that concludes this week of the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll be back on Monday, as we'll have to go through all the craziness from the college football field and the NFL field as well. We'd like to thank Michael Samter. We'd like to thank Stuart Kovacs. We'd like to thank everyone for participating in this show, whether it's via the radio or on the free Odyssey app or in our very active YouTube chat as well. We'd like to thank Kevin Carter for coming in the studio, Ryan Horvat as well. You can catch me this Sunday for 8 hours on the 8-hour marathon of Ion Football from noon to 8 p.m. Eastern. And if I survive that, I will be back here Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific on CBS Sports Radio. Have a great weekend, everybody. Be safe. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.